I'm going after those horses.
I take the camels.
I don't need camels.
But Indy.
No camels.
In all of this, Indy says, I'm going to go get Brody. I'm going to snag us some rides out of here. I'm going to grab these horses. Sala says, I'm going to grab some camels. And Indy says, no camels. We don't need camels.
Indy rolls up he jacks 4 horses. He's like, all right, I got a horse for everybody. And then Sala comes up in the background and he has like 5 camels. And Indiana Jones is like, why'd you get all these camels? I don't need these.
He's like, I said no camels. That's like 5 camels.
Sala! I said no camels! That's 5 camels! Can't you count?
I said no camels.
That's like 5 camels. What are we doing?
No camels.
Hey, what's poppin', Colonels? Benny Noodle. It's Just Play It. It's happening. We are back. From Holy Grains to Holy Grails, from the last corn dog to the last Crusade. Here we go. It's time to jump back into our franchise of the year. We're going back in the Jeep on the horseback with Indiana Jones. It's a major deal. We're halfway-ish through the season. 4th of July is right around the corner. What could be more American than Indiana Jones? I don't know. Well, I'm here to talk about it. I'm James. I'm Jimmy Crack Corn. I am one of your hosts. Sitting across the table from me is my best friend, the corn dog himself, the slick glizzy, Mr. Slick Nick. It's Nicholas Jerry Justice. How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. Yeah, thanks for that intro. You know me. I'm just that big battered bitch over here. The corn dog himself. And ready to go, man.
That's a new
ready
one.
Ready to go. Ready to talk about, I got a little aggressive. Feeling a little aggressive today. Really excited to talk about, our franchise of the year, right? Our 3rd installment here of Indiana Jones.
Halfway point.
So I'm pumped.
Of the franchise of the year. It's symbolic. It's cinematic. It's American. We got a lot to talk about, but we do have an order of business to get to. And we can't pop our kernels. We cannot roll our corn dogs, our hot dogs on the roller without getting warmed up. And the way we get warmed up is by doing a quiz. And we invite you guys to play along.
It's a grid quiz, 3x3. So there's 9 squares. You get 9 guesses. We had previously, up until our last podcast, gone perfect up to this point.
I blame Bill Cosby and his crappy movie.
I think that's just going to be a theme of my life from now on. I'm just going to blame Bill Cosby when things don't go my way.
I like it.
It's a new week and it's a new chance to go ahead and start a perfect streak. So what do you say, James?
I'm ready. Not only do we want to go perfect, we want to be top % of the day. And in order to do that, we need to line up these categories with movie answers. And the more rare of an answer we provide, the higher score we get. And our record to this point has been top 2% of players for the day. So let's shake off the loss from last week. Let's get into it. I'm going to read you our actors that we have on one of our columns here. So we are looking at actor Seth Rogen, actor Channing Tatum, and actor Ice Cube. I can already see where this is going to go.
And then across the top, we have number in title, actor Jonah Hill, and release date 2005 to 2014.
On a confidence level from a scale from 10 to 10, how you feeling?
I don't think I could feel any better about this.
This was right up our alley
for us.
This was right up our alley.
This was it.
There's a lot of movies to pick out between all these categories and actors. So let's start. I like our tactic of looking at one actor and looking at the 3 vertical categories. Where do you want to start?
We can start with any of them. Let's just start top left. Let's start with Seth Rogen. Let's go Seth Rogen and number and title.
We might need to discuss amongst the categories because they can fit multi-purposely, not only in the other categories, but for the other actors. So we will kind of strategically plan this out.
Yeah, and it's definitely deliberately done.
Absolutely. My eyes go into Seth Rogen and then lining it up with Jonah Hill. I'm thinking, okay, I have an answer for that. 2005, 2014, I feel like was the Seth Rogen decade. So plenty of stuff to
take
go
your
off there.
pick. Yeah.
Number and title.
I have quite a few.
It's going to be so obvious. I'm going to not think about it and then say, oh, duh. So what do you have for number and title versus Seth Rogen?
Well, he was Mantis in the Kung Fu Pandas, so I feel like Kung Fu Panda's our most used movie in this quiz.
Kung Fu Panda has come up a lot. The franchise of Kung Fu Panda has come up quite a bit in these quizzes.
Yeah, so we have 2, 3, and 4 there. He had that movie Neighbors that got a sequel, Neighbors 2. And then he was in that movie 50-50 with Joseph Gordon-Levitt where he had cancer. Those are my contributions. And now it's just deciding which is the least answered.
Okay. I don't think any of those would really impede on the other categories, so I think we can select a number in the title and Seth Rogen. I feel like a Kung Fu Panda might do it.
Yeah, so it's really, do we pick Kung Fu Panda 2, 3, or 4?
2?
Let's go 2.
I'm usually a 3 man, but I'm feeling 2 tonight.
All right, let's feel 2. Let's do it.
Let's feel 2. Oh, yeah. I knew I was feeling it for a good reason.
Yes,
oh,
sir.
Yeah. Let's go. Well, let's just move over to Jonah Hill versus Seth Rogen. I'm sure there's many answers, but the first one I think about is Superbad.
Yeah, same.
I think. And a movie actually that. Yes, that. But a movie I just thought of that also can be any of these categories was The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah.
Because that's where Jonah Hill, I think, got his first featured side role. He had 2 lines in that weird eBay store.
I guess that was another number in Title 1 that we could have used there.
That would have been number, and it would have been release date, because I believe that was 2005.
Yeah.
I feel like 40-Year-Old Virgin might be the play.
I think a lot of people will have used 40-Year-Old Virgin for number and title, so I think I like that. Let's do it.
Let's punch it in. Oh, yeah. We're single-digit over here.
7%. That's a little surprising to me. That's a little low. I'm happy about it, but just seems a little low.
I think people are going to go Superbad and Knocked Up and maybe some other... Maybe This Is the End. I think that was another movie that had both those guys in it.
They were around together a lot.
Like we said, there's a lot of movies to work with for Seth Rogen for this era. I'm just thinking of rando movies that are not popular. The first one that sticks out to me for release date of 2005 to 2014 for Seth Rogen is Observe and Report.
I like that. Yeah, I was thinking Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Yep, that's another good one.
And then another one that I thought would be maybe a little obscure was he did cameo when he interviewed
Step Brothers?
Dale. Yeah, and Step Brothers.
Okay.
So I
those are a lot of great options.
I think Observe and Report is... I think that's a great one. I would like to go with that one.
Let's punch it in. Observe and Report.
Ooh, 3%. Oh, boy.
Okay, I don't want to get cocky, but we might crush this.
I think so. I think we will as well.
Moving down to our next actor, Channing Tatum. Same categories, number and title, Jonah Hill, release date 05-2014.
We clearly have the Jump Streets, 21 and 22. Ice Cube has that as well.
We might want to pocket a Jump Street for Ice Cube and Jonah Hill.
Wasn't he featured, or wasn't like his first big role that kind of got him onto the scene was Step Up, right? He was in Step Up.
Yes.
Was he in Step Up to the Streets?
Is that THA Streets?
I think it's the number 2.
I know for a fact he was in the first one. I do not know if he was in the second one. However, I believe he's in all the Magic Mikes. And I think Magic Mike, the second one is called Magic Mike 2 or whatever.
I think it's Magic Mike XXL. And I'm kind of upset at myself for knowing that.
I thought there was a third one.
I mean, we could type it in.
No, I think you're right. I thought there was 3 movies.
I have Like Mike 2 Street Ball that comes up when I search that. But
I doubt XXL would count as a number in Roman numerals.
And I really don't care to find out. Step Up to the Streets does have a number in it.
Okay.
Now, is that a better guess than any of the Jump Streets?
That is a better guess. The only thing that's scaring me is it could be a thing where... Because look, they made a lot of Step Up movies. We can see here. There's Step Up Revolution, Step Up All In, Step Up 3D. So I'm scared if it's like a Tremors situation. You know, Kevin Bacon's in the OG Tremors, but he was never in the rest of them. So...
He was in the movie The Hateful Eight.
Oh,
I think 8 is spelled out in that one. So I don't know if that counts.
I feel like it should. And if it doesn't,
too.
then I call bullshit.
Do you want to try that?
I want to try that.
All right, the Hateful Eight. Oh, it works. 9%.
Boom,
We are
boom,
living
boom. Let's
in
go.
the single digits.
We are in the single lane. Let's go. All right. Got that off our chest. We got some breathing room now. So now we can focus on Jonah Hill, Channing Tatum. Obvious answer is one of the Jump Street movies.
Yeah.
Trying to think if they were in anything else together. Possibly. Maybe he was in This Is the End. I don't know. There's a lot of cameos in that house party scene in the beginning.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of his other movies. He was in... I think he was Superman in the Lego movies. He was in G.I. Joe. But I don't think Jonah Hill was in G.I. Joe.
Me, personally, I can't think of anything. I feel like it's going to have to be 21 or 22 Jump Street. And we're really just going to have to play some sort of mind game with the general public of what we think is going to be less guess for Channing Tatum and less guess for Ice Cube.
He was in Hail Caesar. Was Jonah Hill in Hail Caesar?
Not willing to say yes.
Okay. All right, we'll go with the Jump Street. We'll go with one of the Jump Streets.
21 or 22?
Let's go 22.
33%.
We knew something like that was coming.
All right, release date 2005-2014 for Channing Tatum. Coach Carter, which I believe was 2005.
That was 05. I'd do that.
Because we were talking about...
Yeah, because we were talking about...
When you're trying to guess what movie I picked.
It was from 05, just like Two Brothers. Or Four Brothers.
I feel... Two Brothers. It's called Two Brothers.
I feel very confident in Coach Carter.
I feel like Coach Carter is a good guess there.
Let's do it.
Oh my God. Not only was it a good guess, but it was the best guess. It's coming in at 2%. Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay. We are crushing this so far. Let's bring it home with actor Ice Cube.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to think about number movies.
Friday 2.
We're planning on... Well, that's just called Next Friday.
Or Barbershop 2.
Oh,
Barbershop,
Barbershop, right? Barbershops, right? Yeah. No, we're good. Okay. I was tripping. I thought we were going to lose out on a number, but...
He was also... Yeah, he was in Ride Along 2.
Yes. I feel like that might be popular.
Okay. So do you think Barbershop 2 is...
For some reason, I feel better about that. Because Ride Along is a little bit more recent, and maybe... I don't know what generation's playing these quizzes. Like, would they... Gen Z know what the hell Barbershop is? No.
Good question. Yeah, I'm good for either. I feel like like that people are going to use the Jump Streets on both on him for these, but I'm down for Barbershop 2.
This is Barbershop 2 back in business, baby. Hey, better than 22 Jump Street. We're coming at 23%.
We sure are. All right, Ice Cube, Jonah Hill. I mean, I think we've accepted we're going with 21 Jump Street here, right?
I think we have to. This might be our highest percentage. Let's see what it is. Yeah. Pretty high. Not the worst. 48%.
I just really can't think of anything else.
I'm sure there might be like one other answer, but I don't know it right off the top of my head.
Neither do I.
Okay, let's bring this bad boy home with Ice Cube, release date 2005 to 2014. Another big old pool of movies to pick from.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm going XXX State of the Union and Are We There Yet?
Oh, Are We There Yet 2? That would have been a number.
Oh, no. There was an Are We There Yet sequel. I think it's called Are We Done Yet? It's called Are We Done Yet?
Okay, so Are We There Yet? I feel like that it's very possible it could have been pre-2005. So I feel like Are We Done Yet is going to be a nice, safe, within that decade answer.
Okay. I'm down. I'm pretty sure Are We There Yet? It probably is like 05. Like it's pretty...
It probably is. But I feel like Are We Done Yet is going to be a great answer.
I think so as well. Let's go with it.
Let's bring it home. And a great answer it was, because it was 14%, and we just went perfect, and we just went top 2% of players today. We just matched our PR. Let's go.
Let's go. I'm a little surprised Are We Done Yet was at 14%.
You think that's high?
I think it's a little high.
I don't know. Maybe they just pulled that out of there. their pocket. But you know what? Score is 2,564 points. No idea what the points means, but we are top 2% of the day. And let's go ahead and look at the most popular answers. Nick, what are the most popular that we have for Seth Rogen?
For Seth Rogen, going left to right for number and title was 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Like we said.
Yep. For with Jonah Hill, we had Superbad. And then the 05 to 2014 was Knocked Up.
Those are all the movies we said were going to be the most popular in those categories.
Yeah, we called it. How about Channing Tatum? What about that middle row, James?
Confirmed. Channing Tatum was in Step Up 2, The Streets, because that was the most popular answer for number and title for Channing Tatum.
Dodged a bullet there.
Most popular was 21 Jump Street, so we did kind of have big brain and went 22, so that's good. And release date was Magic Mike. These are all the crowd please generic, just the pop. People aren't going for deep cuts. That's why they're the most popular basic biatch answers. Nick, Ice Cube, most popular.
Most popular number and title was Ride Along 2. So great call on going Barbershop 2.
I told you.
Ice Cube and Jonah Hill, 22 Jump Street, right? So we saved ourselves by flipping them. And then Are We There Yet? Was 05.
We are just mirror imaging these. We are finessing these suckers.
And now let's go to least popular answers where everyone obviously cheats. For Seth Rogen, number and title, Zeroville. I don't believe people really knew that. For with Jonah Hill, we have Horton Hears a Who. Okay. And then release date, Shrek the Third.
He was in Shrek the Third?
Probably an uncredited voice that somebody looked up on IMDb.
Nick's a little bit...
I'm a little jaded.
He's a little jaded and a little suspect about what's going on. Okay, so for...
There's no integrity to these scores, is all I'm saying.
For Channing Tatum, number and title looks like a movie that's just called 10 Years.
Okay.
Lego Movie 2 for Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. So they were in that one together.
Okay.
Didn't know that. And a movie called Supercross. It looks like some 2000s motorcycle dirt bike movie.
All right.
Doesn't even look like he's on the poster.
For Ice Cube, number and title, we have First Sunday. Looks like a Tyler Perry joint.
It does. Okay, so now we know first and thirds count as numbers.
Yes,
okay.
We do.
Didn't know that.
The rarest correct answer for Ice Cube and Jonah Hill was 21 Jump Street, so we did the best we could there, surprisingly. And then for release date for Ice Cube, the rarest one was 22 Jump Street. And I'm guessing that's just because everyone used those up for the other Jonah Hill answers, like we did.
Was that for release date?
Yeah, for release date. 22 Jump
Street. For Ice Cube?
Yep.
Oh, mine says Straight Outta LA. There must be just one person doing it, and then in an instant, there's two people guessing something else. I don't know what's happening.
Or they're tied. Who knows?
Nick, the perfect streak starts tonight. And what a way to start it out. Because, like we said, we are jumping back in the saddle with Indiana Jones. The movie we watched and that we are reviewing this week is the third installment, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade from 1989. And this movie is directed by our guy, our savior, Mr. Steven Spielberg.
Yes, sir.
And this movie stars Harrison Ford, Sean Connery, and Allison Doody. Gotta love that name. Nick, what do we got for numbers here? What's our budget and what's our box office return?
So our estimated budget here is $48 million, which I thought seemed a little low for Indiana Jones for the third installment. And then our box office worldwide was $474 million. I did a little looking. For 1989, that was the top grossing movie. This came out actually, I think May 14th or 19th, one of those. And it was the only release that weekend. Nobody wanted to go up against
nice
Indiana Jones. That didn't even want to. The next closest box office for that year was 1989's Batman, which we have watched here. And I think that got around $411 million.
All right.
I mean, we're talking a 10x return. I mean, good Lord, when you're talking a $474 million return, that's pretty damn good.
It's shocking because that's still the lowest return out of the three that we have reviewed. because Raiders had a 2,166% increase from the budget. Temple had 1,190, and this one is returning 988% of its budget. So the quote unquote most underperforming so far, but hell of an accomplishment.
Something I saw that I found a little interesting was this movie comes out in May, and in June, James Bond License to Kill comes out. And that does about 115 million, 120-ish, I think. And I just kind of laughed because Spielberg and Lucas were talking about doing an adventure James Bond, right? An adventurous James Bond. And by this point in the installment, the third time, they had surpassed James Bond, right? They've created this character that outshines James Bond. And I thought that'd have to be kind of cool if you're creating this concept to mimic this other concept, and then you just blow it out of the water.
Student surpasses the master. And not only that, it also has one of the greatest James Bonds in this movie, Sean Connery. Look at all of it tying together.
Look at us connecting dots.
Okay, well, Nick, why don't you say we connect these plot dots by getting into this movie, and I would love for you to crescent it by reading this log line.
Yes, sir. In 1938, after his father goes missing while pursuing the Holy Grail, Indiana Jones finds himself up against the Nazis again to stop them from obtaining its powers.
Again?
We know in Raiders, the Nazis got fooled by opening the Ark and it destroying them, but they're back for some more mystical artifacts. They didn't learn their lesson the first time. So here we go again. And let's get into that, Jamesy, with some plot talk.
Plot talk. Paramount logo, gotta shout it out. It's been a thing this entire time. We start out with the logo, and then it transposes into a real life item structure in the movie. This time it turns into a rocky peak that is in the middle of Arches National Park in Utah.
Yes, my wife was very excited. She loves national parks, and she goes, I think that's Utah. And she saw the double arches. She goes, that's Utah. That's Utah. That's Arches National Park. I go, okay, I believe you. I don't know who you're trying to yell at here.
Calm down, Jesus Christ.
And I go, I don't know what location they're trying to mimic, but then we find out we're on like a Boy Scout trip.
Yeah.
And we are in America. We're not trying to mimic another place in the world. We're in the United States, in Utah. And we see our young Indiana Jones. Our young Indiana Jones is played by River Phoenix. Rest in peace.
And we don't actually know this is young Indy yet. They do a nice little cool reveal, but River Phoenix does play young Indy. He actually met Harrison Ford on a movie called The Mosquito Coast, where he played his son, Harrison Ford's son. And Harrison actually picked out River to play young Indy because he said, hey, there's this actor named River Phoenix that looks exactly like me when I was that age. And I thought, wow, River Phoenix looks a lot like Harrison Ford. And even like his scowls and his frowns and the eyebrow and like his like menacing, like belongs in a museum. I thought, wow, that they did a really good selection here. But we don't know it's young Indy until we get the big reveal, because we go into this archaeological dig site and we see what seems to be Indiana Jones down in this dig site with his silhouette, his fedora, leather jacket. And I almost had to do a double take because this is not Harrison Ford. It's some guy who looks like Dollar Store Ford. This is like
Dollar Store Harrison.
Fjord.
Farrison Horde.
Then we get the reveal of that this is Utah. It's 1912. So we understand this is about 20-ish plus years before the plot of Raiders takes place and Temple of Doom. And if you really didn't understand it, then don't worry. There's this best friend that's going to go, Indy, Indiana. He's talking to River Phoenix. We're like, we get it. This is young Indy. Mm-hmm. We got it.
Yeah, we see this Indy-ish looking archaeologist, right? He's stealing the Cross of Coronado, which is in one of the arches, the base of one of the arches in Utah. Nice, nice and convenient.
Hell yeah.
And he wants to steal it. Indy is already, he's showing us who he is, right? He's a principled guy. He says that belongs in a museum. Right, it goes along with what we know about Indiana Jones.
Fun fact, in an early draft, the character of the fedora guy was supposed to be, or it was originally going to be Abner Ravenwood, which is Marion's dad. So that would have been a cool tie-in, but they just make it a rando archaeologist stealing a cross.
Young Indy steals it back, and we get our classic Indiana chase scene. He's going to jump on his horse, and as he's going to jump on his horse moves away, and Indy falls to the ground. And I go, all right, we got some Indy comedy. We're not taking ourselves too seriously. We get this chase scene with him on the back of a horse. The music is a lot more whimsical and fun and adventurous. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, we're really kind of back to the roots of Indiana Jones. And I know we're only 2 movies in. We're only 2 movies into this franchise at this point, right?
Yeah.
But we're definitely back into the Raiders of the Lost Ark roots.
We're back to the good one. It's doing a lot of cool character building moments in the scene and kind of explaining why Indy is the way he is, because we are seeing similarities, but we are seeing stark differences at some points. Like you said, the horse moves on him, which is funny, but it kind of shows that he's still young and learning his badass parkour. I'm Indiana Jones, kind of fumbling. He does take a snake off his friend, and we're like, oh wow, he's not afraid of snakes. Spoilers, he'll be very afraid of snakes later on in this chase scene. That comes up on a circus train, which is very cool. I actually really enjoyed this chase scene. It's very silent film-esque of just fun Pulp Fiction kind of an action adventure chase scene. Is very lighthearted.
I was thinking, everything
fun.
that could go wrong does go wrong, almost like a bit of a comedy, like you said, almost that black and white serial. He jumps onto a train car, and from the outside you see it just say like reptiles and snakes, and so of course he falls into a snake pit, freaks out,
and there's a giant snake, I think, right?
Yes.
It's funny because I think they threw that in like, oh, he's not afraid of snakes yet. And then immediately he hits the traumatizing moment in his life that makes him super afraid of snakes. Another thing that comes up that is very on brand for Indiana Jones is what, Nick?
The next car, he falls into a lion, the car that's holding the lion.
Again, this is a circus train. So it's a traveling train with like giraffes and rhinos and lions and reptiles and
everything you could want. So he falls into this lion's car, and the lion's coming after him. And what does he grab off of the wall of the car, James?
Grabs that whip. And one thing I want to say I appreciate with the whip was they gave a real life kind of tie in, because Harrison Ford has that scar on his chin, and he got that in a car accident when he was like 22 or 23. So they canonically tie it in to when Indy first used a whip and then just whipped himself in the chin and then gave himself that scar. So I thought that was cool. There a lot of attention to detail, a lot of fun, over the top gags that worked.
This is just a nice chase scene of young Indy becoming Indy. The one thing I noted was it's the classic opening Indiana Jones chase scene, and we've had this in both movies up to this. It goes on a little too long, but it's fun. I feel like taken out of it.
I feel like I enjoy it too much.
I was enjoying it, but at a certain point, you're like, good Lord, this kid's on a train. He's getting taken away from his friends. I'm like, he's like 25 miles away from the park.
No, yeah, no, you're right. It is very elaborate. I think I would describe it as very elaborate, and very impractical and unrealistic as far as reality goes. But as far as enjoyment, I don't think it went on too long.
Maybe too long is the incorrect word. You look down and you're like, we've been doing this for 15 minutes. I'm having a good time. Don't get me wrong.
It reminds me of Peter Griffin and the chicken fighting for like 20 minutes, and they made it all the way across the state.
Yeah.
So River Phoenix is only in this movie for this prologue, and it's very memorable, and it's very well done. It's very well choreographed, and it's giving us insights to Indy of his characteristics. And it ends with he goes to the Dr. Fantastic's magical caboose, which Frank Marshall, we've shouted him out many times. The husband of Kathleen Kennedy, one of the producers of this movie. He was the fill-in pilot in Raiders and cameoed in Temple. Apparently, he was named Dr. Fantastic when he was a magician as a kid. So that's why the caboose says Dr. Fantastic's magic caboose or something. He ends up going to his house where we meet Indiana Jones's father. Not fully, we just get a side profile back of his character. We don't see his face. We know it's Sean Connery, but he's not revealed.
That sultry Scottish voice gives him away. You're like, yeah, I saw Sean Connery. I know he's in the movie. I hear that voice. His dad is Sean Connery. 2 and 2 equals 4.
We got it.
So we know about his dad that he's more interested in his work than paying attention to Indy. Because
Being a
Indy's trying to
father.
tell him, hey, I have this cross and these bad guys with guns are chasing me.
I have the Cross of Coronado. Look.
His dad never even looks up at from his work to look at Indy.
Instead, I think he quizzes him on the Greek alphabet or some sort of dead ass language. And he's very busy drawing something in his diary, which is going to come up later. It looks like we know what it is later. It's going to be a stained glass piece of art. And as he's drawing it, he says, "May he who illuminated this illuminate me." And then we're interrupted by Fedora. This guy's name is actually Fedora. And Panama Hat. The other
Panama
guy
hat
in the
and
white
fedora.
suit. Yeah. The guy in the white suit that kind of looks like Harrison Ford's get up in the opening of Temple. Sans bow tie. He has a regular tie. He wears a Panama hat. So his character is named Panama Hat. He's got the red rose or red flower on his chest. And Fedora, fake Indy, Ferris and Horde, as we'll call him. They kind of have the cops on their side and they're like, "Gotcha, kid." And Fedora kind of gives Indiana Jones like, "Hey, you know what? You got caught today, but basically I respect you," because he takes his fedora and puts it on Indiana Jones. Is this the fedora that he has for life from this guy?
I think so, yeah. So, yeah, he says to Indy,
You lost today, kid. But it doesn't mean you have to like it.
so telling him, hey, don't give up. Like, I respect you. Keep doing what you're doing. We kind of get the start of the Indiana Jones music that we're accustomed to.
John Williams on the track.
Gosh, he's so good.
And it's a match cut of the hat, and he tilts it down, he tilts it up, and all of a sudden we're on the Portugal coast in 1938. This is going to be post Raiders and Temple, because Temple did jump before Raiders, but now we're in the future.
So we actually have the same evil guy, the white get-up, rose on the breastplate guy. Same old cross, though, the Cross of Coronado. So he's going after the cross again. And Indy is still as adamant as ever that it belongs in a museum.
Well, it's funny because on the train, when he's talking to Fedora, he says, "That belongs to me." And young Indy says, "It belongs to Coronado," meaning, what's his nuts? Francisco Vasquez de Coronado. He says it belongs to Coronado, but the funny part is that this boat is actually named Coronado.
I saw that.
Ironic. But Indy thinks, nah, like, this is not for private collectors. This is for museums. I'm a big museum guy.
Big time. So Indy in this movie, just going to put it out there, he is much more of a brawler. He will take on 3-4 men at a time. He is a physical specimen in this
Something
movie.
happened. I think maybe something. Well, I was gonna say something happened in Temple of Doom, but that was technically before Raiders. Just he's built up from all of his adventers. He's built up, dude. He's sick of this crap.
After the runway fight scene where he almost dies, maybe he just got in the gym.
He
started
took
pumping
it
some
personally.
iron, took some classes, some boxing classes.
Started sparring with Brody.
And we all know Indiana Jones will take a man's life. He's not one of those. He's not Batman. He doesn't have like a no-kill code.
Not like Michael Keaton's Batman. Speaking of 1989 Batman.
Yeah, well, 1989 was just a year of violence. So right off the bat, I noticed he's kicking dudes into these like vicious waters, middle of the ocean, like Deadliest Catch sort of waters, right? Pretty vicious. And so Indy's fighting guys on this boat, has the cross. He ends up climbing up on this stack of boxes that's marked explosives. And you know how on this podcast, we love boxes that are just marked explosives. If you see them, they're going to explode.
The barrels say not carbonite, but carbon something. And it is a reference to carbonite from Empire. And how Han Solo got
frozen in carbonite.
They're labeled Carbonetto because you got to be Portuguese.
Yes, it's like Carbonetto and then Explosivos.
And one bad bounce of these Carbonetto explosive barrels just engulfs the entire Coronado boat in flames. Goes kaboom.
What I thought was funny about this is whether Indy was on that boat or not, that boat's exploding. Right, with the rough seas. I don't know why this
are they
boat
transporting
has
all those
so
explosive
much-
barrels?
And why are they just out there on the deck? But Indy does go overboard with a life tube, and he does survive. We have no idea how he makes it back to shore out in the middle of this raging ocean. But he's Indiana
Is he all
Jones,
buff
so he
now?
does.
Yeah, he's buff.
And we go back to him as the professor, right? The university professor. He's teaching a class on archaeology, and it looks like it's the first day of the semester. He's giving a syllabus course.
And like you said, this is very similar to Raiders. They are going back to the formula, because Raiders started out the exact same. We had an exciting prologue and introductory scene that set the stage, and then we jump into his professional life as a professor. During his syllabus course, as you said, he does say, X never marks the spot. And we're like, okay, you're making little ties into your treasure hunting days. I see.
Yeah, he goes, there's no treasure. There's no, archaeology is done behind a desk sort of thing. And we're all saying to ourselves, yeah, come on, Indy. Come on.
Okay.
But he's a celebrity at this school. So after class gets out, these kids are mobbing him back to his office. I'm like, these kids need some manners. They're like,
relax.
I thought all the girls in his class, all the college chicks, were trying to bang him. They were staring at him with some lustful eyes.
They were in Raiders.
Yeah.
Probably some of the guys too.
He gets back to his office. He has a mysterious package.
Just mumbles, Venice.
It's from Venice. Yeah. I'm sure he gets packages from all over the world all the time. That's what it sounds like. And he sneaks out of his office via the window so he doesn't have to go through a sea of students. And he's being followed by some ominous fellows. We don't know they're ominous, but they're in a black car and black suits with black sunglasses.
Not good.
And John Williams is kind of giving us the ominous violin a little bit. And we know. But we get taken to a fellow's house named Donovan.
Walter Donovan. Yeah, he is some high roller, rich guy, American prick. We don't know that yet, but he's pretty prickish. He's played by Julian.
Is it Glover or Gulver? Is that a typo?
He's played by Julian Glover. Not Julian Glover. I didn't have a lot of time today.
I like how you picked that up. Like the second you looked at it, you're like, nah.
I was like, is it Gulver? He's played by Julian Glover. And this gentleman actually played a character named General Veers in Empire Strikes Back. Kind of typecasted as a very rigid facial structure looking guy in charge. But fun little fact here, Nick, when he is coming into the room with Indiana Jones that he's meeting up with, you faintly hear on the piano the Imperial March. John Williams throwing in a little music Easter egg there.
There were a couple times in this movie I thought I heard faint similarities to the Star Wars score, but after being so wrong in Temple of Doom about thinking that I heard it, I didn't want to bring it up.
You should have said it here.
Maybe it's just the John Williams charm, right? That's just his style, and it just sounds. I really should have. But our boy Donovan.
Yeah, Walter Donovan. Jesus Christ, I can't get this guy. Okay, Walter Donovan.
Julian Golva.
Walter Donovan basically proposes a new quest line for Indiana Jones. He says, look, we got to go after the Holy Grail. He could have led with this, that it was his father that was his guy. But he just leads on Indy, leads on the audience and says, our guy went missing. And then Indiana says, oh, you should check with your guy. It's like, he's your father. It's like, we'll just open with that. All right. Stop playing games with me. But he's very confident that they're very close to the Holy Grail because he says, we're only one step away. And Indy responds, that's usually when the ground falls out from underneath your feet. There's a little foreshadowing of what's coming up at the end.
Just a little bit. And yeah, we do get a little sense that he has some daddy issues because the Holy Grail, right, was his dad's life work.
Obsession.
Donovan says something to him, and you could tell he gets a little prickly when talking about his dad. So you're thinking, yeah, we got some daddy issues. But like you said, James, we do have a quest. We got to go find Dad. And the only place to go do that is Venice. And when we hear Venice, Indy goes, that's where the package came from. It was his dad's Holy Grail diary. It all comes together. And then before we go to Venice, Donovan says to him, don't trust anybody. And right here I go, this dude's going to double cross us.
Donovan's bad.
He's going to double cross the shit out of us. Nobody says that.
We're 2020. We're not 1989 audiences. We're smart.
We're about to get double crossed at some point.
Okay,
but
Donovan.
We are off to Venice.
And we're going to meet with a Dr. Schneider, and like a bunch of sexist bastards, they think Dr. Schneider is a guy, but it turns out it's a hot chick. And this is Allison Duty.
This is.
Elsa, I see you wrote down here, is a smoke show. Of course.
No doubt. And German, so we're kind of like...
I think she was supposed to be Austrian, technically.
But at that point in 1938, what's the difference?
Yeah, seriously. And she says, oh, you have your father's eyes. And Indy is about to rizz up on this blonde, as the kids would say, by saying, and I have my mother's ears, but the rest belongs to you. And I'm like, dang, this guy is a freaking G. Also, can I just say how aesthetically pleasing it is just to see everyone wearing suits and dresses in very earth tone colors in Venice in the 1930s? Just looks good.
Are you saying we've fallen off as a society wearing sweatpants and flip-flops everywhere?
Crocs, baggy pants. You know what? Bring back that Mad Men era. Not the sexism and misogynist stuff, but just the style. Like, it looked good. It looked really... I was like, this is it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, put on something nice to go on the airplane, you know?
Let's put on some tan suits and walk around the Riviera. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you. So Dad left some clues behind. Dr. Schneider was working with Indy's dad prior to his disappearance. So she knows Indy. She talks about, his dad, what they were doing, and they have to go to this library. And Indy has his dad's diary, so he knows what his dad was thinking. And in this library, they have to look for a tomb because this library is in an old church. And so they need to look for tomb number 10. Roman numeral 10 is an X, right? Obviously. And it's on the floor. And at a certain point, he looks down from a balcony and sees the X.
X marks the spot.
And I go, nice.
An even better thing is that ties into that scene in the classroom again, because you can kind of hear it, but with subtitles on, he's talking to class and he says 70% of all archaeology is done in the library. So you're like, X marks the spot in the library. Okay, all right.
We gotcha.
It's also going to tie back to the opening with John Connery and his journal, because this is that stained glass window that he was drawing in his journal, and the illumination line, because he says, whoever made this, whatever, illuminate me. The X on the ground, I feel like it needs the light from the stained glass window to be visible, because from the second story where Indiana Jones goes up and looks down and sees there's a giant X on the ground, there's a different shot from the side and it's very faded and you can barely see it. So I thought it was very cool to tie it back to the Sean Connery's lines in the prologue section. I thought it was like cool. Like, we got the X marked spot, we got the library, we got the illumination. It's all come together.
We could already see with all of that, right? The callbacks and everything. This story is already so much more well built than Temple of Doom was, right? A lot more thought went into this, right? Our boys weren't going through their divorces. They're a little more clear headed.
They're happy.
they're putting this story together. And so we're going to break down into this catacomb, into this tomb. Indy grabs one of those stands for the rope cordoning
Stanchion
devices. Stanchion? Wow, I didn't know the name for that. I didn't think either of us would, but there it is. So we break down. We're gonna go down there. Dr. Schneider, Elsa's the first one down there. She's an adventurer. We're like, all right, you go, girl. They're down there searching. Already some goons are one step behind them. They enter the library, and our homeboy Brody,
Marcus Brody,
he gets knocked out. And so our goons are following Elsa and Indy. There was something funny that happened down below in the catacombs. There's a painting of the Ark of the Covenant down in these catacombs. We think it's water. It's not water. It's petroleum. So they're going to light up a torch, going to take an old bone from a skeleton, wrap up some
he
cloth.
just rips up some guy's corpse.
Yeah.
Grabs a femur bone.
And they're going to light it on fire for their torch. But Indy fell in the petroleum, and I'm thinking to myself, my man, you are super flammable right now. Like, I wouldn't be near fire.
I see we both had this in our nitpick section at the end, because, spoilers, the goons will light up that petroleum water river catacomb basement with a single match. However, the flaking embers coming off of that torch from Indiana Jones have no effect on lighting the river on fire, but a match does.
None. Another thing we noticed down in these catacombs is there are a lot of rats. big ass rats.
Thousands. And you know what, Nick? They were specifically bred for a few of these scenes because they needed to literally create these rats from birth to make sure they were free of disease so that they can crawl all over Allison Doody and Harrison Ford.
Wow.
And this has shown up in every single Indiana Jones movie. First one, we had Hella Snakes, the bugs in Temple of Doom. Now our big, grotesque million animals is rats.
We did hear a story earlier with Donovan. The legend of the Holy Grail is that there were 3 brothers who found it.
Not 4 brothers?
I can see a world where these 2 movies exist together. So one of these brothers has his tomb down here, and that's who we're looking for. And we find him. He has a shield that he's buried with that has all of this writing on it. I think it's all Latin. He got it all down on a piece of paper. And then as our evil guys light it up, aforementioned, this piece of paper is just in petroleum getting doused. And the next time we see it, it's just a nice dry piece of paper with nothing wrong with it. I thought that was interesting. So our bad guys do light up the catacombs. Indy does find a way out through the sewers. Kind of, again, a lot of little comedy bits. They pop up in the middle of this outdoor cafe through a manhole. And we're going to have a chase scene now. We're going to get on some boats because this is Venice, right? We're right on the water. So we're going to have an escape chase. I don't want it to sound like, oh, it's too many chases. They're all very well done chases. And I like this boat chase.
Very good. Yeah. It looks like we're getting chased by some Turks.
Mm-hmm.
They got guns. They are just shooting up the place. Shout out Allison Doody. This is in that era of just female actors just run around in high heels. Like they're doing their stunts in high heels. So she's running on slippery docks and jumping in slippery boats.
She jumped into the petroleum in her whole nice pantsuit getup in high heels.
I guess it'd be time period accurate, but shout out. So we got this sick boat chase happening on the Venice canals. Spielberg, Lucas, they love putting Harrison Ford in these trash compacting situations because there's these 2 giant boats that are being brought together. There's, again, another comedic gag. Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones says, "Don't go in between the boats." And Elsa says, "You want me to go in between the boats?" And then Indy's like, "Why are you going in between the boats?" The Turkish boat is chasing them. Homeboys get not only compressed to death, but the boat explodes. It just
This
explodes.
is one of many questionable explosions that happen in the movie.
It like shoots out of the 2 compressing boats, kind of like that stunt you see at Universal Studios. If you ever go to the Waterworld show where the plane jumps out and it's on fire, it really is ripping out of these boats. And I just thought, we're heading into the 90s. This is the start of the explosion era in cinema. I think they just thought explosions are where it's going to be.
But we have some good boat fights here. Again, in this movie, Indy is much more of a brawler. Bad guys are jumping on the boat, and Indy is just taking them out one by one. Eventually, we get to the main guy who's chasing them. We're beating the crap out of him, trying to interrogate him. We find out he is not necessarily a bad guy, but he's trying to protect anyone from finding the Holy Grail. He's like, "I'm ready to die. Are you?"
Ready to die. And that is the entire point of his existence, his MO, because he is part of the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword. And they are essentially prepared to die to keep the Holy Grail safe. And I just thought, oh, so he's not necessarily an antagonist, because you know, we see these Turkish gangs coming in, knock out Brody. We're like, all right, well, these guys with these funny little red hats are obviously the bad guys. But then it turns out, no, they have their own mission, and Indiana Jones just happened to be in the way. And after I learned that Chasm is his name, after he wasn't necessarily just a mindless antagonist, he was just a protector of the Holy Grail, which is something I can get behind. It made me think about those 3 homeboys on the exploding boat and how I felt bad for them, that they kind of died because of a misunderstanding.
Yeah, because he asks Indy, I'm trying to protect the Grail. And Indy's telling him, I don't want the Grail. I'm just trying to find my dad, dude. And Chasm's like, oh, in that case, I'll tell you where he is.
Yeah, it's like,
okay.
We didn't have to have all our homeboys die.
We didn't have to do all this. But he does tell us where Indy's dad is. He's at this castle. And so we have a new quest direction. But before we get there, we're all going to take a breath in Venice, a little similar to Temple. Indy's just going to go into Elsa's room, tell her, hey, I'm doing things my way, not your way. And also, we're banging. He plants a kiss on her, and she's like, yeah, let's do this.
It's like a successful version of the Willie Scott guest room scene from Temple. But yeah, he's like, I learned my lesson with Willie Scott. Fuck that bitch. I'm going in with you, and I'm just going to kiss you. And then she's like, how dare you? And then she kisses him, and then they smash. And then that's that bond. That's that bond element of Indiana Jones that Lucas and Spielberg were going for.
Before we leave, we do get a little fun hint that gets the viewer excited. Indy will look at Brody and say, get in touch with Sala. And I go, oh,
we're like, yeah,
Sala?
let's go.
That's
Sala's
our boy
back.
from Raiders. Yeah. And again, we're connecting back to that movie that everyone loved after Temple was meh. So we're pumped.
Saul was a huge highlight of Raiders. So I think they really just kind of took Temple on the chin and thought, we got to go back. Like we said, go back to formula.
There's nothing wrong with a little bit of fan service.
Agreed.
So we travel to this castle where Dad is supposedly being held. It's stormy. It's lightning, right? It basically looks like Dracula's castle. That's what I was thinking.
It was the original pitch for this movie. They wanted to do like a haunted castle setting and also tie in the Holy Grail. So I think this was just kind of like their reference to that.
Indy tries to smooth talk his way in, but as we've seen in previous movies, he's not the best with smooth talking, and he's not a master of disguise. So we throw on this Scottish accent, which is kind of funny, right? Because his dad, Sean Connery, is Scottish, so his dad in the movie is Scottish. So we throw on the Scottish accent, doesn't fool anybody, so he resorts to knocking out the butler who answered the door. And like I said, we know Indy's not a smooth operator when it comes to his mission. He's going to knock you out.
Speaking about this butler, there's this very obvious ADR work. I'm sure you noticed it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, if you are Scottish, then I am Mickey Mouse. And it's very out of place. The volume doesn't match. The room ambience, background noise doesn't match. So apparently originally this was supposed to be I'm Jesse Owens, who was the African-American Olympist that beat out the Nazis in the 1936 Olympics, which is on brand, and it's within the timeline of what was going on. But I think they just changed it because they thought it's not a tough reference that people might not get. So let's just throw in Mickey Mouse. Everybody knows Mickey Mouse.
Man was on Wheaties boxes. I'm into Jesse Owens.
Man was on Wheaties boxes, but I just think they thought for the entire kids family, we'll just say Mickey Mouse, and it's a little cheap laugh, but it was a very obvious
as early as 1989, Disney was getting their hands into Lucas. Okay, good to know.
Well, I thought it was a Disney Plus makeover, actually, because maybe I thought, maybe they said something controversial, and for the Disney Plus version, they just changed it to Mickey Mouse because that's how I watched it. It was shot originally as Jesse Owens, but in post-production, it was changed to Mickey Mouse in 1989. So it is authentic to the theatrical release. But it would have been a cool little slight foreshadowing because seconds later, minute 46 at 23 seconds, we got Nazis.
Indy even kind of says Nazis.
He says, I hate these guys. And it's funny because World War II hadn't technically started yet. But Indiana Jones just has had a personal run-in with Nazis, so it
hadn't started for America yet, but it was underway.
True.
It was a European war. It wasn't quite a world war yet, but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
So we do find Dad where he is. We're gonna break into his room. Indy does some nifty whip work to swing, a good old fashioned dun 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 dun, and he flings himself into his dad's room. We get Dad and Indy reuniting. Kind of funny. Dad bashes a vase over his head, thinks it's from the Ming Dynasty. Really what we find out is his dad is still obsessed with work. Even though his son is there.
He just bashed his head with a vase. He's like, oh, thank God it was fake.
Yeah, it was fake.
It wasn't actually from the Ming Dynasty.
How did you find me? I read your diary. Oh, did you find in the library? Did you find the catacombs? Did you find the dead soldier? Yeah, right. That's his first thing. Not, oh my God, my son is here. This is great. He's here to rescue me. I love you. It's good to see you. No. But his dad does seem super impressed with him for figuring it all out. And there's this push-pull the whole movie of Indy being this, lone wolf. I'm Indiana Jones. I'm great at what I do. But still, he kind of lights up when his dad gives him compliments throughout the whole movie, which works really well. I think it actually works really well for like the character of Indy that we know, who's this pompous ass and then turns into a little kid around his dad. It's a really good dynamic in this movie.
Absolutely.
The Nazis will break into the room and find him. And they do the classic. I don't know if it's a classic yet. I don't know if this was the first movie to really put it on the forefront, but to me at this point, it's a classic. They pull off the fake argument with each other to distract the bad guy. And then at the climax of the argument, he takes the gun from the Nazi and he just mows down 3 Nazis. And dad is like, what? You just
Henry Jones Sr. is pretty shook that his son, Little Jr., just murdered these 3 guys. He's like, oh, you're that kind of archaeologist.
You're the murdering type.
You'd be plundering.
There's no doubt this is Indiana Jones in this movie. This is his highest kill count of any of the movies.
He's a murderer.
Yeah, it's Nazis, so we're totally cool with it.
Yeah.
So we're getting out of the room, and a Nazi officer is holding Elsa at gunpoint.
I believe this is Vogel, which is going to be our main henchman guy on the Nazis that we're going to hate. Colonel Vogel.
And Dad, Henry, he says, she's a Nazi. I'm telling you right now, she's a Nazi.
Don't believe her, son. She's a Nazi. And Indy, fresh off a bang with this lady, says, no, she's legit. She's cool. Psych. She's hella Nazi. You got him. So she is in cahoots with the Nazis the entire time.
And she just banged Indy to get his trust. And we find out she did the same thing to Dad.
Oh,
she banged both of them.
Banging both Mr. Jones and me. It was crazy.
Imagine being Eskimo brothers with your pops.
Yikes. Walter Donovan comes back. It's revealed that he is working with the Nazis. He's a Nazi sympathizer.
Yeah. And he hits you with the, I told you not to trust anyone, Mr. Jones. You're like,
okay.
Come on,
Nick
buddy.
called it out right when you said that, dumbass.
Really, the Nazis only wanted Henry Jones's diary, and so Indy had it with him. So they got the diary. They're missing some pages, mainly a map to where the Grail is kept.
So Brody, he has these missing pages from the diary.
And Indy does this thing where he says he has a 2-day head start on you. He knows 12 languages.
It's probably like the greatest like edited joke of the movie. Just that smash cut of like the total contrast because like you said, keep going.
Yeah, he says he knows every custom in the world. He knows 12 languages. He'll blend in with anyone ever. He has 2-day head start.
He's got homies in all these towns.
Yeah, like you'll never find him.
And then smash cut to Marcus Brody, and he's just lost in a crowd saying, does anybody speak English? Anybody speak English? So we're in Iskenderun, which is built on the ruins of Alexandretta. That was the name of a town that they name dropped in the hotel room back in Venice.
That city was the key. That city was the key to all of it, Alexandretta. So it was a big deal.
Yes, because Henry Jones Sr. had all the clues in order. He just never had that starting point, which is why he could never get the path of the Holy Grail in lock. And then Sala comes in.
Yeah, our boy.
John Rhys Davies. He makes a return. He's looking like he's blending in. He's a chameleon. He's looking like he is. He's basically blending in to look like a local. There's another funny moment because, again, like the shady people tailing Indy in the beginning, we get shady people coming up to Marcus Brody and saying, hey, I'm the CEO or the manager of the Museum of Antiquities or whatever.
We were expecting you.
And Sala says, there is no Museum of Antiquities. And Marcus Brody is kind of like a little fumbly bumbly guy. And Sala, I think 3 times says under his breath, run. He says, oh, you want our papers? Okay, let's give him our papers, Brody. Run. And Brody's not hearing it. And then Sala's like, all right, I'm just going to punch this guy. So Sala throws hands and punches this Nazi affiliate, whoever this guy is. Another thing I just want to say I appreciate about this scene is not only are we getting back to those comedic elements and action-packed elements, but it just feels so good to be outside again in these locations.
Yes.
I don't want to compare and contrast too much to Temple of Doom, but that is the last movie that we are watching from this series. And it's just the best part about Indiana Jones is the globetrotting, exotic locations. This is what an Indiana Jones adventure movie is all about.
Yeah, I felt the same way when we traveled to Venice, right? We did that transposed map with the red line of them traveling. And I thought, yes,
Love that.
This is Indiana Jones. We're traveling around. We're solving some clues. We're going from one location to the next. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Temple was just so, and that was our biggest beef with it. We were in this underground temple.
We were in the temple
80%
for an
of the
hour
movie
of on-screen time. It was killing the vibe.
So the Nazis do get Brody pretty quick.
Well, because Sala says, hey, run in this random ass room. And turns out it's a fucking Nazi semi-truck trailer. And you're like, of course. It's too eye-rolling to be mad at, honestly. It's like,
yes,
of course an Indiana Jones would do this gag.
It's perfect, right? It's like a false plywood set that after he runs through the door, the set just falls down and you just see it's a Nazi trailer truck.
Very silent film adjacent. Yep.
Yeah. So we're back at the castle. We have Indy and his dad, tied up with rope back to back. We can't kill them yet because we're not sure we have Brody yet. So we're going to leave them alone in a room. Never leave captured people alone in a room together. Again, some more comedy. Indy says, reach in my pocket, grab my lighter, my good luck charm, and burn through the rope. And what does dad do? He takes the lighter, burns him a little bit, throws it on the ground, and he goes, son, or Junior, he calls him Junior.
Junior.
And he goes, I told you not to call me that. It's like, yeah, well.
The floor's on fire.
And so is that chair and the table.
The entire room's on fire, and they say, head to the fireplace, which is typically where fires are, but it's the only place that's not on fire. Not only is the fireplace the safe haven, it's also a trap door because they hit a switch and they rotate into this radio comms room for the Nazis and then rotate back out. There's a lot of comedic bits going on here, a lot of physical
It's a Scooby-Doo gag, and I loved it.
It's great. So that's their means of an escape.
We're running through this castle, getting away from the Nazis. We hit this dead end in a room. Again, comedic, but also very Indiana Jones-ish. His dad goes, I find if you take a seat and think about things, the answer comes to you. And he sits in this chair, rocks back, and it lowers this spiral staircase in the middle of the room. I'm like, yep, trapdoors, random buttons in rooms. This is what I signed up for. It's classic Indy. Also, we're at the halfway point. The reason I call this out is I think this is a great halfway point because we've done so much and we know we still have a long way to go. And I'm thinking to myself, up to this point, at least, they haven't wasted a minute of on-screen time. All of this has been wildly entertaining, wildly fun. I'm enjoying every second of it.
The reunion with dad is our big climax of the movie. As they're making an escape, Indiana Jones comes to a river section, sees a bunch of boats docked up and says, great, another boat. He's sick of boats at this point. There's been 2 boat explosions so far. He's like, I'm not getting in another goddamn boat.
Almost got chewed up by a big propeller. He's like, nah, I'm done with boats.
The Coronado exploded. We're done. So he sets the boat off as a decoy and the Nazis run out. And there's this random motorcycle with a sidecar, luckily, in this crate on the dock that him and his father jump into. We got a motorcycle chase with the Jones boys and the Nazis. And fun fact, this was filmed in the area nearby Skywalker Ranch of Mount Tamalpais. This was out in Bay Area, a little local area over here. That's where they shot this motorcycle chase scene.
Let's go.
Indiana Jones actually jousts one of the Nazi motorcycle homies. That's kind of like an allusion to the knights that were on the hunt for the Holy Grail. So again, they always thematically tie in these physical gags of what the context is about. Also, I thought personally they could have laid off the explosives when Indy jams that flagpole into that homeboy's spokes because it looked like a lot of explosion powder went off when he was supposedly tripping on the flagpole, getting jammed into his wheel. It looked like a giant airbag went off because this motorcycle and dummy do a 1.5 front flip in the air. So this is where I think the literal and figurative fork in the road is, which is about our halfway point, because they come up to a fork in the road. There's a sign that says Venice. There's a sign that says Berlin. Indiana Jones wants to go to Venice because that's the direction that Marcus Brody is being held. And Berlin is where the diary is. And Pops, Henry Jones Sr. says, we need that diary for more info. And he talks about the challenges that we need to overcome in the search of the Holy Grail.
But I found the clues that will safely take us through in the Chronicles of St. Anselm.
Well, what are they? Can't you remember?
I wrote them down in my diary so that I wouldn't have to remember.
Half the German army's on our tail, and you want me to go to Berlin? Into the lion's den?
Yes, the only thing that matters is the Grail.
What about Marcus?
Marcus would agree with me.
This is what I call our halfway point, because it's really a big decision of like, do I follow my gut or do I trust my dad?
And Indy seems annoyed because his dad, again, is choosing work over people, right? Do we go save Brody? Do we go get the diary? And his dad is saying, we need to get the diary. And Indy's thinking this is a selfish motivation. Henry is thinking this is the right thing to do. So there's, again, that push-pull, dad's work, but also at the end of the day, he's going to follow his dad's lead because he wants his dad's approval so much.
He secretly wants to trust and believe his dad. And this is where he does bring up, I don't understand this obsession you have with the Holy Grail. Mom never understood it. This is where we get a lot of backstory without over exposition of that he was a neglectful father and focused too much on his work.
He also does make reference to Indy's kill count at this point, and he's a little appalled by it. And honestly, so am I.
It's a lot.
So am I. And he's killed a lot of people. So, but long story short, we got to go to Berlin.
What better way to bust into Berlin than a good old-fashioned book burning?
Yes, sir. And Indy's going to do a gag, not a gag, but a thing he does a lot, a thing we'll see him do again.
Constantly.
Is he's going to, like a video game, he's going to sneak up, knock out a Nazi guard, put on their uniform. And now he's going to blend in. We do see Elsa's at this book burning, and she's crying as the book's being burned. And because she does enjoy knowledge and learning and discovery and adventure in these things, and this is all opposed to it, but we still don't trust this bitch. So
not sure.
Indy does sneak up behind Elsa, and she seems surprised, a little happy that he's alive, but Indy doesn't care. Indy actually grabs her by the throat and says, all I have to do is squeeze. And I'm like, do it, Indy. Do it. Murder this Nazi. But he doesn't. She goes, all I have to do is scream and your cover's blown. But she does give him the diary. And then we have this sort of intense scene where
Indiana Jones runs straight into Hitler. Just like the students wanting Indy's attention, all these little dirtbag Nazi sympathizers and Nazis are begging for autographs from Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler is played by Michael Sheard. Shout out, he was the U-boat captain in Raiders and also played Admiral Ozzel in Empire Strikes Back. Again, Lucas, Spielberg, they love bringing these imperial fools into the Nazi realm because obviously they're a very similar faction. But Popcornio, Ronald Lacey, our homeboy who played Toht in Raiders, he is making an uncredited appearance as Heinrich Himmler.
Heinrich Himmler.
But the funny part about this is that Hitler signs the diary. Instead, we thought, oh, he's going to take the book and throw it in the fire pit. But Hitler just grabs the diary and signs it, which I thought was hilarious.
Signs it, and we get a nice visual of him signing his full name as if we didn't know this was Adolf Hitler.
It's very legible, too.
Thanks, guys. So they're out of there, and they're like, we need to catch the first flight out of Germany. So we go to the airport, and how are we traveling in 1938 Germany, James?
Zeppelin, we be blimping.
We do be blimping. So we get on the blimp. They're wanted men. So Indy thinks to himself, I'm just going to steal another uniform.
Vogel comes back on the blimp, just what we saw 5 minutes ago, if even. Indy says, I'm going to steal an outfit. This fool is a master at stealing clothes.
Yep. So he gets this, and he ends up kicking out Vogel. He throws him out of the window of the blimp, and he looks around at everybody on the blimp, and he says, no ticket.
No ticket.
So, like, I'll even throw out a Nazi officer if they don't have a ticket. And everybody waves their ticket in the air. What was interesting to me is then the next scene, Indy's in his regular clothes. So everybody on the blimp would have seen him come back in regular clothes and not be a worker on this blimp, but we're not worried about that.
Regardless, they're afraid of this psychopath who's going to throw them off the blimp. Working on the blimp or not working on the blimp.
He's throwing them out of blimp
You're
windows.
getting thrown out of a blimp window.
Yeah.
But speaking of clothes, fun fact, Sean Connery and Harrison Ford were not wearing pants during this scene because Sean Connery sweats a lot. And like a fellow hairy Scotsman, I also get too hot and sweat a lot. So I sympathize with not wearing pants on the job. I've done that on this podcast at one point. But Harrison Ford looked at Sean Connery and said, you know what? I'm going to take my pants off too. And we're going to do the scene pantsless. So there's a lot of close-ups and not wide shots in that scene.
Respect.
A lot of reconciling in the scene. We get another little like slow down moment. We can catch up with father and son.
So they reconcile, but they also don't. So they're both sitting there with a glass of whiskey or scotch or something. And Indy says, the last time we had a drink together, I had a milkshake, right? I was just a boy. And his dad is saying, well, what do you want from me? Like I made you grow up tough and independent and look at where it's gotten you. And Indy said, I just want to talk. And his dad says, well, I'm here now. What do you want to talk about? And Indy has nothing. He goes, well, what?
We missed all that.
Yeah, Cat's got his tongue, and it shows Indy just wanted someone to be there and talk, not about anything specific, but just anybody. And his dad just doesn't get that, right? He's just,
and you could tell it's been festering and bothering Indiana Jones. And Henry Jones Sr. throws out a sick burn in this scene and says, well, you left home just as you were getting interesting, which I believe is an improv. No chill with Henry Jones Sr. But blimp's turning around.
We're heading back to Germany. So he goes, we got to get off this blimp. There's only one way off this blimp, James. And there is an escape plane that is hanging off of this blimp, this Nazi
Obviously,
plane.
escape pods are not a thing yet, so we have escape planes.
Which will do in a pinch.
So we got ourselves a dogfight.
Yeah, so some other Nazi planes roll up. Dad's in the gunner seat. This probably was my best laugh of the movie. I thought this was so well delivered from Connery.
This was a genuine laugh from me as well.
Yeah, so he's shooting at the Nazi planes, and he's shooting behind the plane, and he ends up shooting the tail wing.
Shreds the tail of their plane.
Indy goes, did they catch us? Or did they get us?
He's like, what's going on back there?
Sean Connery just looks around. He goes, they got us.
That was a good joke.
It was really good.
So without tail, we're going to crash land at this farm. And there's this poor guy who's changing the tire on his car. And then they just carjack this fool.
Yeah.
And now we got a car chase. So we just went from plane chase to car chase. Like this is not letting up.
Well, the car's being chased by the plane.
Yeah. A very north by northwest shot with the plane pursuing
Great
the car.
Call. Yeah.
They end up going to this tunnel and they're like, perfect. A plane won't follow us into this tunnel.
Guess again.
Except it does. It goes full send into the tunnel. And this guy went for it, I have to say.
It knocks the wings off of the plane. The plane is actually slides past the car. And the Nazi pilot looks left. The plane does explode after it gets all the way through the tunnel.
So good. There was 2 planes in this chase. So there is one plane still out there. They make it to this beach. The plane has caught up to them and it's about to mow them down. And Indiana Jones is thinking, what do I do now? Don't worry, take a back seat because Pop's got this.
Yeah, Indiana Jones has his whip. His dad has his trusty umbrella. And Dad's going to chase all of the seagulls on the beach with his umbrella. They're going to fly up into the air and just wreck this plane. It's breaking windshields. It's death by seagull, really, is what happens here.
Seagull death.
Indy's dad now finally has himself a kill count. And he has no remorse. But we're good. So we're fine now. We're in the clear. We've survived the plane attack. And now we have the diary. And we got to go. We know where Brody's going to be. He's going to be where the Holy Grail is. So we got to get to the Holy Grail first. And that is in the Republic of Hatay. So we're going to go cut the Nazis off there.
It's funny because this is one of the rare times we'll be in this region because this transitional political entity was only in existence from September 1938 until June 1939. So 1 year, the Republic of Hatay had its time to shine, and it got a shout out in Last Crusade, which is pretty funny. But Walter Donovan, he's meeting with some government fools, some royalty guys.
Yeah. The first thing I notice is the hats they're wearing. It's almost these Fez style hats. They're the same hats that Kazim and the protectors of the Holy Grail were wearing earlier. So I'm thinking, are these guys going to double cross Donovan? They're not.
No, because Chasm, his hats are a little bit short and stubby. And these Hatai hats are a little bit more buckety. They're a little bit more tall bucket. They got tassel on. Very similar hats.
But he is in this palace.
Because he just shows up when shit gets hinky around the Holy Grail trail.
Donovan is pretty close to the Grail at this point. But Indy's going to go ahead and meet up with an old friend. So we're going to get Sala. And he could take us where we need to go. He has a car. I think it's his cousin's car. The tablet we were reading says you got to cross the desert, cross this area, through this canyon, and we see Brody's with the Nazis. They're in a tank, by the way. They have a tank and a ton of other folks. Our heroes, Sala, Indy, and his dad, are watching this convoy via the cliff. It's very sand
reminiscent of the Raiders scene when Indy caught up with the Nazis with the RPG.
Absolutely. It's also very sand people-ish, right?
Big Tusken Raider energy happening here.
And just like the Tusken Raiders, Kazim and his group are out here and they start sniping at the Nazis. They're causing a problem.
And cause this whole convoy to kind of freak out and scatter. And unfortunately, Chasm does die, which is sad.
He does get smoked.
He does exactly what he does. He dies protecting the Grail.
He does. And his last words are, "For the unrighteous, the cup holds everlasting damnation." So he's still, he knows what's going on with this Grail, and he's trying to give a final warning to Donovan. But Donovan is not, he's not interested in any of this. He will not be
I'm a
deterred.
rich guy. I don't have to worry about that.
In all of this, Indy says, "I'm going to go get Brody. I'm going to snag us some rides out of here. I'm going to grab these horses." Sala says,
Indy, your father and Brody.
Where's my father?
They have them in the belly of that steel beast.
And then we have this whole other kind of crazy chase scene involving this tank and horses. George Lucas said he wanted a tank in this movie, and Spielberg just wrote out this entire tank horse sequence via
this is a
storyboards.
quarter of the budget. I feel like this is a quarter of the budget. The tank scene?
It might have
this chase?
Well, the tank, I would agree, because the tank, they built this for the movie. They built this beast.
Oh, shit.
This thing was made out of actual steel, weighed 28 tons. And George Gibbs, who is the mechanical effects supervisor, he was also the guy behind the giant propeller that was chewing up the boat.
Mm-hmm.
They put the boat on a winch and had it slowly coming towards the giant propeller, which would chop it up. It was very impressive, very practical. He was also behind the idea of building the tank, because they would go to all these museums and check out these little French Renault tanks and thought, nah, we're going to build a big badass tank for this movie. And they built it for real. There was an aluminum version of the tank where they would put camera mounts on and get all the close-ups of the actors, but they did build this real tank so that it would react to the terrain realistically, not bounce around like it's some sort of rigid, lightweight toy. This shit was a real deal.
It looked like a World War II Panzer tank. They're fighting on the tracks of the tank. Guys are getting caught up on the tracks of the tank. Indy has this sick moment where he does get his hands on a gun. 3 Nazis are coming at him in a line, and he triple kills them. He sends one bullet through 3 Nazis.
3 for 1 special.
Triple kill. It's pretty intense.
Okay, so I know you've said it before on this episode, but Indy is truly a brawler. He is throwing down on these guys. He is throwing haymakers. He's body slamming guys, and then he caps it off with the 3 for 1 special.
Tosses a guy onto the tank treads. That guy gets just eaten up by the tank treads. He is murdering people.
Yeah.
All the while, there's this fight that's going on inside of the tank with Brody and Dad and a couple Nazi officers. They're trying to get a hold of a gun. Dad does finally get a hold of a gun. And just like in Leonard in the kitchen scene,
I was gonna say, I didn't want to bring up that shitty movie, but we do get another bullet ricochet moment and impales tank guy, the driver.
Yeah, the tank driver
tank's
just
driving
ping, 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 ping.
uncontrollably now.
Yeah.
Dad gets out of the tank. Saul is coming up on a horse, and we get a great Saul moment, a great comedic moment. I don't know if you noticed this or caught this really as a comedic moment, but he like very quickly in this frantic moment, chaotic moment, tips his hat because he's never met Indiana Jones's father. And he says, "Father of Indy," greets him very quickly and says, "Give me your hand." So it's like, "Hey, how you doing? Let me save your life."
Yeah.
Another great moment. Sean Connery jumps on the Saul's horse. It's a big spectacle, chaotic scene. There's a lot going on here. At one point, there's even a Nazi car that gets impaled by the tank's cannon. The cannon goes through the car, and the car is perpendicular to the ground, and it has just been spiked by this cannon. I want to call something out here. During this whole tank scene, Indy on horse stuffs a rock into one of the side cannons of the tank. I want to bring this up because I appreciate, again, just like the illumination line, just like all the foreshadowing that we've been seeing in this movie, it's calling back to what his dad said after he did the seagull play, taking down the plane.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "I remembered my Charlemagne. Let my armies be the rocks and the trees and the birds in the sky." And I thought, oh, like he's taking this small rock and he's David and Goliath-ing the situation by just incapacitating the tank cannon with a rock. And I thought that was cool. It seemed like Indiana was learning from his father's ingenuity and improvisation, because Indiana Jones is all about improv and making up his answers on the fly.
Yep.
The only caveat is there is absolutely zero record of Charlemagne actually ever saying this. So this is very fabricated for the script, but themes and motifs wise, I appreciated it.
Maybe Charlemagne the God said it on his radio show.
We don't know. This whole tank horse scene ends with a big climactic moment. The tank's driving out of control. Indy is beating the shit out of Vogel. He is making it a point to repetitively smash this fool's head to make sure he is unconscious as the tank is rolling towards a cliffside. This was hilarious because they use a lot of dummies in the Indiana Jones movies. This turns out, actually a miniature, the tank when it rolls off the cliff. But the blonde mini dummy that's supposed to be Colonel Vogel, he is just glued to the cannon of the tank. Like, no matter how much this tank is tumbling down this cliffside, the dummy is just not moving from his death grip on the cannon portion. And that's the end of Vogel.
It was very similar to the green screen of when Mola Ram fell down off of the bridge down into the waters below. It was very, just heading down.
Big composition vibes. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone thinks Indy went off the cliff with the tank, and they're having this sentimental moment where everyone's very teary-eyed and, that's his dad, right? Never showing emotion towards his son, is emotional. And then a great Indy comedy. He climbs up off to the side, back onto the cliff.
Exhausted.
He stands behind everybody looking down at the tank, and they're all looking together. Dad gets sentimental, gives him a huge hug, which we haven't seen them really physically touch the whole movie, even when he saved him from the castle.
And Indiana Jones is like looking very much like a son who is under the protection of his father at this moment. He's like,
yeah, let's
his
guard down a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then right afterwards, after they know everything's okay, his dad goes, all right, like, let's keep going. Indy collapses to the ground because he's exhausted because he just fought 20 Nazis and almost fell off a cliff. His dad's saying, why are you sitting down? Like, let's go. So we're going to head to the Canyon of the Crescent Moon, and we arrive at the monument or the temple, and this is Petra, Jordan. And if you've never seen this, the cliffside temples, this is a bucket list item for me.
Yeah, this is on my list of places to go to. This is Al Kazne, the temple. It's very stunning. And a fun fact, Jordan tourism skyrocketed after this movie came out because people thought, I want to go here. This looks awesome.
Oh, I bet.
So we made it. We made it to the temple, and we have just under 30 minutes to go in this movie. And we're about to start the final showdown.
We get to this temple, and turns out the Nazis are already there. And as we come in,
Classic.
the first booby trap that we've alluded to, right? Those are the 3 booby traps that were in the diary.
3 challenges.
It's already murking dudes. It is a scythe that is just chopping off dudes' heads, and they're just looking for volunteers to go in and get murdered.
They get caught by the Nazis. They are captured.
Yeah, they want Indy to go and get the Grail. Indy says, I'll never do that. And also, you can't shoot me because I'm too valuable to you. Donovan says, you're right, but you're kind of with your friends here, so I can shoot your posse. And so shoots his dad right in the stomach.
Big shocker moment. Big jaw drop. The audience is like, oh shit, they don't do this to our heroes.
No. The only way to save him now is by going and getting the Grail and giving him the fountain of youth, right? Everlasting life if you drink from the Grail.
Strong
That's the whole point of this. So Indy says, all right, I'm sort of between a rock and a hard place here. So we're going to go do the trials. So our first trial is only the penitent man can pass the first trial. And this is where everybody's been getting destroyed.
There's a lion statue at the beginning, and we've been hearing this quote, only in the leap from the lion's head will he prove his worth. So we know lions have something to do with it. This is the callback to that circus train when Indy first ran into that circus lion with the whip. So it's all thematically coming together.
He figures out a penitent man must kneel. So before he gets his head cut off, he kneels down. The blade goes over his head.
Not only that.
Oh, then he has to do
There's 2 blades.
Sick barrel roll.
He has to do a somersault. So they're a little tricky dicky with the Holy Grail hiding because you have to kneel to not get chopped in half horizontally. But then there's a vertical one that comes out of nowhere. I thought that was a little unnecessary and egregious, but Indy knows what's up.
Our second trial, we must follow in the footsteps of God in order to pass the second trial. So Indy finds out that he must step on the certain path. So there's a bunch of stepping stones, each with a letter on them. And he has to spell out the name of God, which is Jehovah. So he steps on the J, it falls through. Indy almost falls to his death. Also call back to we're so close. Well, that's when the ground gives out from under you, right? That was his first conversation with Donovan. And then we get to our last trial, which is that you must leap to prove your worth, right? This is the lion, right? That you were talking about. The courage of a lion. Indy's facing this vast abyss. It's a test of faith. And so Indy steps out into this abyss. You have to believe.
Taking a leap of faith.
He ends up stepping on this bridge that is an optical illusion. It looks like it's not there, but it is there.
Very cool effect. Camera pans to the right, and then it sees that, oh, it looks like Indiana Jones is stepping on nothing. However, if we pan to the right, it's an optical illusion. The bridge is almost, quote unquote, painted to be a matching image of the wall across the 50-foot gap. And then we pan back to the left and it kind of matches up. I'm sure this was done in post-production because it would be pretty hard to accurately paint something practically. But very cool effect.
So we get through these 3 trials and we come up upon this knight, this old, from the medieval era knight. And this is the brother of the knight that had the shield, right? We heard the legend of the brothers who were guarding the Grail, and one stayed behind. And this is the one, and he's hundreds of years old, 700 plus years old. And Donovan and Elsa are followed behind, and they come into the same chamber. And the last trial or test is that there's maybe 30 grails laid out, and you have to choose the correct one. So Donovan, of course, he's here. He's like, I'm the first one. I'm going to be the one who chooses the correct grail. Elsa chooses for Donovan and says, oh, it's this one. It's this ornate chalice. Donovan says, oh, yes, a chalice fit for a king.
The Holy Grail for sure has some godlight shining on Walter Donovan. And he takes a sip of this holy water. And it's obviously the wrong one because, like you said, it's too ornate of a cup. And then he ages to death. And he actually started looking like Christopher Lloyd from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like that very like CGI, like
Like, eyes
crazy,
get sunken in.
eyes bulging in. Yeah. And his hair growing out. That hair growing out of the skull apparently was a practical effect.
Really?
Pretty wild. But then they would also superimpose it with visual computer composition of claymation and stop motion and bring it all together in post-production to sell the effect that this full aged all the way past Crypt Keeper status in 4 seconds flat.
Yeah, ages like 500 years, like turns into a decomposed
He
skeleton.
goes like beyond death.
He goes way beyond death. Indy then decides, because he still needs to save his dad, he chooses the modest cup, the most modest looking grail.
Fit for a carpenter.
Because Jesus, modest, humble, he wouldn't have an
It ain't
ornate
much,
grail at the
but it's honest work.
at the Last Supper. So he drinks from it. He goes, there's only one way to find out if it's right. He drinks from it, and the knight tells him, you have chosen wisely. But he does tell him the cup cannot pass beyond the great seal of the temple. So the grail cannot leave this temple. It is here. It needs to remain here, which is good. We're like, all right, that's expository information, but I'm sure it will come up later.
Very understandable.
We do bring the grail back to good old dad, have him drink from it. We pour the water on his wounds. It saves him. And dad finally gets to see the grail in all of its glory. His eyes light up like this is his life's work. And he finally gets to see it. After this, Elsa gets what I call the Gollum look in her eyes from Lord of the Rings, where she just gets this lust for the grail. She goes, we have it. We can leave now. And so she grabs the grail and she starts leaving and she steps on the seal. She busts the deal, James.
She does bust the deal, which means she needs to spin the wheel, and the wheel being spun means the temple's collapsing and shit's hitting the fan. Dumb bitch.
Yeah. So as soon as it's just dumb bitch moves, dude. Similar to the beginning when Donovan could have led with your dad is the one who left. Indy could have said, if you try to take that grail, this temple is like it will collapse.
I think even if you were to say that, like you said with Gollum, it does have that Schmeagol effect because the temple starts decaying, it starts crumbling, and floors are splitting, 1,000-foot drops are forming, and the Grail lands on this perch that's about maybe 10 feet down. Indy saves Elsa, holds her hand, classic, hold my hand, give me your other hand, you're slipping type moment. And she is torn between saving her own life and reaching for the Grail. And this is where I got big old Schmeagol vibes, because she is looking at that ring of power, the Holy Grail, and thinking this is the most important thing ever. And I think this is where she looks the most insane and demented in the entire movie. And something about that Grail is just exactly like the ring from Lord of the Rings, where people just lose their shit and think they need to grab that.
Can I say I appreciated this moment because she ends up slipping and dying, falling down the crevasse after trying to go for the Grail. And I just appreciate when, in the previous two Indy stories, the love interest, it works out. We don't know what happens post-story, but in the end, it's a happy ending with him and his love interest. Elsa's been conflicted the whole time. She kind of helps. Obviously, she gave Donovan the wrong Grail, so he would die. So we thought, are we going to give this Nazi bitch a redemption arc? I don't want her to have a redemption arc.
So she's been keeping me on my toes the entire time. She's a fat ass wild card in this movie. It seems like she's on to Indy's side. She's on the Nazi side. She sympathizes with Indy, understands knowledge and appreciates historical significance. However, she gets very greedy in this moment. When she picks the wrong Grail, it's like, did she make an honest mistake? Or was she like, haha, just like Kira in Solo, when she double crosses the big bad, you're like, oh, she's on our side. But then psych, she's out for herself, or she's making a different play. So I 100% agree with you. I appreciate the different direction they went with the quote unquote love interest in this movie.
Me too.
But she dies.
Bitch dead.
Yeah, Andy tried to save her, and then I don't even know how, I forget how it happens, but we get the switcheroo where Indy is now in Elsa's old position. He is now the one about to fall to his death, but his dad comes up and grabs him. And even Indy, this is where I think the Holy Grail has some weird Schmeagol ring vibes qualities to it, because Indy also kind of gets that crazed look in his eyes, trying to reach for the grail. But his dad calling out to him, he's been calling him Junior the entire time. And Indiana Jones doesn't like that. But at this moment, he says Indiana, his preferred name. And Indiana Jones looks up his dad with longing eyes, like years of regret of not having a close relationship with him. And his dad just says, let it go. It's very powerful coming from Henry Jones Sr. because, like you said, this is his life's work. Everything he's worked up to is obtaining the Holy Grail. And he's saying, yo, the Grail's not worth it. However, you are. So let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, piggybacking on that, I thought this was the most powerful moment of the movie, right? This is the reconciling moment because Indy was both reaching for the Grail, whether it be for the Schmeagol powers, but he also wanted that Grail for his dad, right? Because like we said, when he was choosing to go between Venice and Berlin, he kept taking his dad's direction to get the Grail because he really wanted his dad's approval by getting that Grail. And to hear his dad finally say, like, no, let it go, son. A, you don't need the Grail to prove your worth to me. And B, you're not defined by the treasures that you get, right? You're defined as Indiana Jones. Like you said, calling him Indiana was just a really powerful moment. They escape the crumbling temple. The knight just kind of gives a good old-fashioned Forrest Gump wave goodbye to him. Like, all
is
right.
the knight just stuck there as he waves goodbye? They just fucked up his cave. Like, it's crumbling. Is he dead now?
Yeah. No, that's a good point because the knight stays alive by drinking from the Grail, right, for the everlasting life. And he
Was
waits
he
there.
addicted to the Grail water? Because you don't have to drink it. Was he addicted to the sauce?
He waits there for someone else to take his place. And he thought Indiana was going to come and be the next keeper of the Grail.
Nope.
But now this Grail is buried in the abyss in this destroyed, sunken cave. And this, maybe he was waving and happy because he finally gets the sweet, sweet relief of death.
Finally.
Kind of just like, all right, dude.
We get out of the cave and we get our final reconciliation scene.
Elsa never really believed in the Grail. She thought she'd found a prize.
What did you find, Dad?
Me. Illumination.
Which goes back to his opening line in the prologue. And we're understanding he's been enlightened of it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, it's about the people you love, and that is his son. Obviously, got to end it on a joke. So we get a very full circle moment because he says, all right, Junior, let's go. And then he's like, don't call me that. I'm Indiana. Henry Jones Sr. says, Indiana is what we named our dog. Like we've said in the last two Indiana Jones episodes, George Lucas named Indiana Jones after George Lucas's own dog, his Malamute. Real life callback, movie callback, because we saw the dog in the prologue. Prologue dog. Marcus Brody, our bumbly comic relief, loses control of his horse and they have to ride through the canyons of Jordan, and then they ride off into the sunset with our Indiana Jones, John Williams joint blaring, and we hit credits.
Boom.
And that is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade from 1989. What a ride. What a chonky plot. But it was well worth it. Nick, do you have any nitpicks?
Nitpicks.
Nothing that we didn't cover already, right? The flammability of the petroleum, I felt, was a really overlooked thing. But other than that, no, I mean, it's as believable as it needs to be for an Indiana Jones movie. So I'm not gonna go too hard in it.
You can't really get too bogged down in it. However, I am going to nitpick those goddamn clumsy Nazis because what's the team that the Harlem Globetrotters play and always beat?
Oh, give me a second. The Washington Generals.
The Nazis in this movie are like the Washington Generals in the way that they are just bumbling, stumbling, fumbling all the way throughout this goddamn movie. When they trick them with the boat and they hop in the motorcycle with the sidecar, we got those two flailing Nazis falling into the water. Like, whoa! The plane crashing into the tunnel. It's like, who does that, dude? The tank driving into its own car. There's one Nazi that rides on the tank treads like a slow and rough slip and slide on his belly, riding towards the end of the tracks, and is going, and then falls
Just roll
off the
off,
tank,
my guy.
and then gets ran over. He's making no effort to save himself. So the nitpick I have is just the clumsiness and the unrealistic reaction time from these quote unquote trained soldiers.
I mean, they're kind of like stormtroopers. Going back to
They
the
are.
Lucas part, they're very stormtrooper-y.
100%. No, that's a perfect comparison.
The aim is really bad. I mean, even when he was jousting on the motorcycle, that one Nazi didn't try to take out his gun
with his gun for about
until
10 seconds.
It was so bad.
It's like Indiana Jones is holding a flagpole and you have a firearm and you can't get this shit out. Come on.
You're just driving right into the flagpole. Like, oh my guy.
Yeah. Don't even swerve to the right. So the nitpick is just the unbelievability of how uncoordinated the Nazis are in this movie. Nick, talking points. We covered a lot in the plot talk. I think we brought up a lot of fun facts, a lot of thematics. If you have any talking points, bring them up now. What do you got?
Yeah, I have a question for you, James. So, and this is a thought. I haven't looked this up at all as to maybe there were some logistical reasons, but this is 1989 and we pulled in $470+ million worldwide. And we don't get another Indiana Jones until the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So do you have any ideas why we didn't get a sequel in the 90s to this movie? It seems like this franchise was ready to take off for another 3-4 movies after this.
Yep, I 100% have an answer for you. And I think it's something that we covered in the Raiders episode, our very first episode of this season, this year. It was very unheard of back in the day, but Harrison Ford had signed on to do 3 movies off the jump, which is very unheard of for the 80s. Nowadays, MCU movies, very common. Hey, Chris Evans, you're going to sign on for X amount of movies. Hey, Tom Holland, you're going to sign on for X amount of movies. Back in the day, Harrison Ford, coming off Han Solo's role, George Lucas knows him and brings him on and brings him back. He originally signed on for 3 movies. One, there's that. This was kind of like the marker of the swan song, except it wasn't, for Indiana Jones at the time. Just back in the day, it was a lot more common practice to have trilogies. OG Hollywood was like, here is Casablanca. Here is North by Northwest. Here is Psycho. And they're one and done movies. And then in those 70s, 80s, we got into sequels. And we thought, well, we can't go past 3 movies. Psych, fast forward to 90s, 2000s, we are going Fast and Furious. We have one more Fast and Furious movie to go. We are at Fast X, which is the 10th movie.
One more, quote unquote.
Indiana Jones is beyond a trilogy. Terminator is beyond a trilogy.
Mad Max
Jurassic Park
now
is beyond a trilogy. Mad Max is beyond it. So in the 80s and 90s, is very common practice to just have a trilogy and be like, okay, we are done. We capped off. If we do a 4th movie, people will think we're crazy. 1, there was the studio contractual side of it. And 2, I believe it was just common practice to have trilogies. And then that was it.
I feel like Lucas and Spielberg being inspired by James Bond, who has, countless entries at this point into their franchise, and even those different Bonds wouldn't have kept going. I would have loved to know what the next installment would have been. And I understand that. I just think, man, $470 million, you have gold on your hands. I'm really surprised that we didn't get another trilogy or another couple of movies out of it.
Technically, it was the lowest return percentage-wise from the budget. So maybe they thought, hey, let's take our W and walk.
Fair.
Trust me, I would love a million Indiana Jones movies. I would love a million Mad Max movies. I would love a million Jurassic Park movies if they were good. It's if you got something cooking, keep it going.
Maybe I'm thinking of 2000s and 2010s Hollywood, where when they strike gold, they just keep digging at it.
They fucking ride that cash cow.
Like, even if you make 2% return, they go, we're doing it again.
Well, I have a talking point. I want to know, how does the leap of faith work? This is very highly debated amongst Indiana Jones fans online and people say it comes off as a forced perspective bridge. However, there is a POV shot of Indiana Jones peering down the canyon, and it is all black. It's very apparent that there's nothing in front of him. How does the leap work? Is it God magic? Is it a practical illusion? Do you have to step out and give an honest to God, no pun intended, leap of faith before the bridge becomes visible? What's going on? If we had to provide some sort of plausible explanation in the movie universe.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with practical. I think it was practical because every other trial up to this point was practical, so it wouldn't make sense for it to get magical all of a sudden. I do think that the staring down into the abyss when it looks like blackness, and I'm gonna get my bag here. This probably isn't what it's intended, but here's my take on it. That's Indy's point of view. So from Indy's point of view, there's nothing, right? From his top-down point of view looking down, there's nothing. However, there is something. I think it's maybe a trick that the mind plays on you when you have that optical illusion that you see nothing there. And until you take that step out, you can't put into perspective that illusion. So I'm going to go with it's practical.
So it's all practical. No God magic involved.
Yeah, that's my take. Because nothing else to this point has been God magic in the trials so far.
Not in the trials, but how about when we get to the Knight brother who's been alive for hundreds of years? How do you explain that practically?
Oh, that's the Grail, my dog. That does bring up a good point that I do want to expand on. With 1938 technology, don't you think you could pass through those trials? Like getting through the saws that cut off heads.
Also the saws. Who set those up? Those are circular saws that are very sharp. Who's sharpening those?
And then the stepping on the right letters, you could, through enough trial and error and enough heavy objects, tossing it forward, you could break through the ground.
That's why I think there's God miracles involved, because they couldn't have been the first ones to encounter the alphabet floor, because if someone fucks up 300 years before, then why is there no floor missing?
Yeah, I was going to say there's no more floor missing. The floor's pristine until Indy gets there.
So does it reset like a video game? That's what I'm thinking. I think there is some involvement from the hand of God over here.
I also don't think the trials were that cryptic. I feel like people could have figured it out other than Indiana Jones.
They could have had a buddy system at that first Sawzall section where someone goes up and gets their head chopped off. And then the second guy standing 10 feet back could have reported back to the crew and said, hey, there's a bunch of saws coming down. You need to duck and dive and avoid it.
The third trial, you could have tied a rope to the guy and had him walk across. And if he falls, he's got a rope. So I don't feel like the trials kept up with technology and human innovation.
And that's the thing. I don't think...
So maybe it had to be God magic.
Yeah, I don't think it's intended to be practical technology. I think it is all... One person goes in, they have their own personal spiritual journey through these trials. And if they fail, they fail. And if they pass, they pass. But that leap of faith bridge is revealed to be an optical illusion. But then there's that next shot when Indiana Jones throws some dirt or sand, and then it kind of sparkles over an invisible bridge. So there's a lot of mystery going on with this leap of faith.
Yeah.
To make your life easier, chalk it up to miracles, God's test.
I see miracles every day. As Insane Clown Posse said.
How the do magnets work? Okay, Nick, let's head over to our mini pops. We're going to get into our award section.
Pop it up.
Let's pop it up. Pop off. Nick, what was the best weapon in this movie? A lot of guns, a lot of whips, any standout pieces of machinery or magic?
Yeah, I was trying to think of what had the highest kill count, right? With the most effective ones. But I think the tank really caused the most problems.
What about the wrong grail? So here's a question. When you sip from the wrong grail, you choose poorly, you die. When Indiana Jones dips the right carpenter grail and pours it on his dad's wound and it kind of bubbles up and acidically cauterizes it, what if you did that with the wrong grail and you splash someone in the face? Would their face burn like acid? Or do you have to drink it?
By the rule of properties that we've seen in this movie, yeah, that would work. You'd get Christopher Lloyded.
So what I wrote down for best weapon was maybe the plane turret, maybe the tank. It was the most impressive thing. But I think the wrong grail might be the most fatal.
I'm gonna go with the Grail though. Just
Let's
knowing
go
that this
wrong
is, just
Grail.
knowing this is gonna end up in a ranking somewhere. The wrong Grail is
Yeah.
definitely the best option here.
Wrong grail is precise, it is clean, and it'll kill you. Speaking of killing you, let's choose our best fighter of the movie. Who was the best fighter? I think we have the same answer here.
Yeah, it's Indy. This is the most savage Indy of all the Indiana Jones, the original trilogy, at least. I mean, he was knocking fools out. He was murdering. He was tossing dudes into the treads of tanks. His dad was even shocked at the carnage that his son was laying down. So I think it's Indy.
Yeah, Indy got that dog in him on this one. Unofficially, I think we started keeping track of the best fighter post Raiders, but unofficially, the best fighter in Raiders was Pat Roach, the big buff mechanic, because he was giving Indy a run for his money. Like you said, you speculated Indiana Jones started working out after he got his ass whooped on the airstrip in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
A recap: buff mechanic, best fighter in Raiders, Temple of Doom, short round.
Easily.
But now Indiana Jones steps up to the occasion and becomes our best fighter of this movie.
Hands down. All right, James. Most valuable character of this movie for you?
Yes, I'm going to go with Henry Jones Sr. because this movie is all about Indiana Jones and his relationship with his father. We get to know his upbringing, and turns out Henry Jones is a major part of why Indiana Jones is who he is, why he is an archaeologist, why he is a perfectionist, why he is almost borderline crazy, because he has daddy issues. And Sean Connery, I think, just provides so much charisma to the character. Originally, George Lucas, Spielberg, they had him queued up to be a Yoda type mentor, very wise and very stoic. However, Sean Connery was totally on board and having a blast with adding in comedic lines and ad-libbing and being like a fun dad, because he was coming off being James Bond, who's very suave and very lady killer like, and he got to have a lot of fun in this role. And I really think he is the entire reason why Indiana Jones is the way he is. And he pulls him out of that obsessive treasure hunting moment at the very end and pulls him back to reality, where he just meets with Indiana Jones on a human level. And despite being the machine treasure hunting character that he's been his entire life, he's the entire point of Indiana Jones's choices in this movie. He follows his dad's choices and he puts trust in his dad. He looks up to his dad. He's the anchor of this movie, I'll say. How about you?
I like it. I mean, I can't argue with anything you just said. I almost said Fedora because he really made Indy want to be the Indiana Jones we see today. He's very small, but it's cliche. His name's in the title, but I said Indy. This was my favorite version of Indiana Jones of the original trilogy. I thought he was much more dynamic, especially in that relationship with his father. Got burned by his love interest. He didn't get to be the suave, right, lady killer that he was, had to make some tough emotional decisions, was constantly trying to impress his dad. And then at the end with the Grail had to make that decision to not get the treasure. It was a real growing point for me for Indy. I can't argue with anything you said about Henry Jones Sr. Was obviously very important. And I think casting Sean Connery was just A++++. I'm going to acquiesce to you, my friend, and I'm going to say I'm in for Henry Jones Sr. I thought he was a great, great character in this movie.
Hell yeah. And now we're going to go to the opposite effect here. Who was the worst character of this movie? The biggest piece of shit? I'll start. I'm just going to shout out Colonel Ernst Vogel. Very easy pick. Obviously he's a Nazi, so that's not good. A lot of times we overshadow the biggest piece of shit award of obvious villains and antagonists for someone who made a very dumb decision and life choice in the movie. However, I think Vogel does have a case here because he's been a pretty generic bad guy, just Nazi antagonist to Indiana Jones. However, there's one point that nominates him for the biggest piece of shit, and it's going back to the car on the tank cannon, because this is a Nazi car that gets impaled on the tank cannon. Vogel gives the command to fire the tank, launch the car off, and then they proceed to run that car over. And Nick, I don't think that guy ever got out of the cannon car.
He did not.
No, because there was a shot of him struggling.
There was a scene of him trying to get out of the car when it was
being
impaled
trapped
on
in the
tank.
car. And Vogel's like, nah, dog, we got to get this car off. And you know what? Just run it over. So I thought that was a pretty big piece of shit move.
I like it.
Who do you got?
Love your answer, but I have Elsa. Dr. Schneider. Dr. Elsa Schneider is a gigantic piece of shit. She had multiple opportunities to do the right thing. She had multiple opportunities to help Indy. I'm really glad she did not get a redemption arc at the end. She ended up dying going for the Grail. And what I think makes her a big piece of shit is that Indy was telling her, basically, you're Nazi scum, which is fact. She tried to justify to herself that she's trying to do the right thing. She just has to do it under the Nazi guise. And that she doesn't like the Nazis, but this affords her the opportunity to do her thing. And then when the opportunity presented itself to do the right thing at the end, she proved that she's just a power-hungry bitch. And that really she did not have the true intentions. She was lying to herself that she was doing the right thing under the Nazi ruse, but really she was just as bad as them. She slept with Indy and his dad.
Oof.
To try and help the Nazis out. And then it was the lying to herself to say, oh, I'm not the bad guy here. Like, gaslighting yourself is pretty delusional. So I think she was a delusional piece of shit. There's nothing worse than someone who thinks they're the good guy, but is clearly the bad guy. So for me, it was Elsa.
And I wish I can chalk it up to the Grail working its Schmeagol magic, but I think I am inclined to agree with you. I have no problem crowning Elsa Schneider as the biggest piece of shit of The Last Crusade. Sticking with negativity, Nick, worst scene.
Yeah, I think it's the underground rat scene and the tunnel with the petroleum. Obviously, we had our nitpicks about the petroleum.
Right there with you.
The flammability. I think it resolved a little too quickly.
For me, yeah, not only the nitpick of just the fire. Why didn't the torch flame embers ignite the entire river? And then all of a sudden the Turks coming in, the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword, lighting it on fire. That's what did it.
Brotherhood of the Cruciform Pants.
Yeah. Besides all that, I think it was just a tired gag of the creatures crawling all over Indiana Jones and this flailing damsel in distress. Got it in Raiders with Marion and the snakes. Got it with Willie Scott and the bugs. There's things of being a signature in your franchise. However, I thought it was a little bit tired. I get it. There's rats crawling all over you. You're screaming. It's chaotic. And then the nitpick of the flames igniting the river. I think the Ark of the Covenant shout out was a little bit of a too obvious of a callback, because what the hell is that drawing doing down there?
I don't know.
I think they were trying too hard in that scene. And if that's the worst scene in the movie, no skin off Last Crusade's back, honestly. But that's my nomination. Opposite, what's the best scene you got?
For me, it's a very long scene, but it is the tank chase scene, because I just can't recall the last time I saw a scene with a tank and a horse being chased and then fighting on top of the tank, car getting impaled by the tank, getting shot off the tank. They were doing a lot. That was a heavy lift of a scene. Like you were saying, I think they knew it. They constructed a whole tank just for the scene, and they took it very seriously, and I think they pulled it off. It was very entertaining, and I thought it was really well executed.
I'm going to go with a boring answer, just like your MVC. I'm going to go with the final scene of saving the dad with the Grail, Elsa getting too greedy, and Henry Jones Sr. saving his son, telling him to let it go. I thought it had a lot of layers to that as well. A lot of emotional payoffs, a lot of character moment payoffs. Resolutions are getting periods thrown at the end of their storylines. Obviously, climactic scenes, final scenes are going to be a very easy nomination for the best scenes. And I think the ending was very satisfactory and nailed it with the outcomes of all these characters.
I absolutely agree. And it's funny, if anybody should have been obsessive over the Grail, it would have been Henry Jones Sr. And instead it was Elsa, and he was the one who had grown as a character. And that goes back to your MVC pick of Henry Jones Sr. He did have a whole story arc of learning to let go of that Grail. So I would say it's definitely the most powerful scene.
Okay, Nick, let's wrap this up with a sarcastic selling point.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll go first. I figured this is George Lucas and Steven Spielberg talking amongst themselves. My sarcastic selling point, I said, Temple didn't work. Let's go back to Raiders.
James, you should read what I wrote down, because what I wrote down was a lot more Raiders, a lot less Temple to do.
That's why I want to go first.
Final review. Fight.
Final review. Let's see what the other guys are saying. Starting out with Rotten Tomatoes, 84% of the critics thought that this was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, man, the people loved it, because the people score on Rotten Tomatoes was a 94%.
Damn. I'm going to hit you with something crazy. Metacritic, the critics gave this a 65.
Yo, what?
Translating to a 6.5 on Metacritic. And not to go on a tangent real quick, but I had to investigate this. I had to look at the Metacritic reviews.
I read some of those, some of the LA Times and Washington Post reviews.
So first off, Metacritic is an average weighted score, and this is going off 14 reviews. 14.
Not a lot.
A lot of movies have 35, they have 50 reviews. This has 14 reviews. Reading some of the top ones, San Francisco Chronicle. It's a beautiful machine, thought out and revved up to the last detail with no other purpose but to delight, and it delights. This is from May 24th, 1989. Variety. The Harrison Ford, Sean Connery father-son team gives Last Crusade unexpected emotional depth, reminding us that real film magic is not in special effects. So we have some positives here. I want to go down to some of the negative reviews. Los Angeles Times gave it a 60. You can't roll monstrous boulders straight at audiences anymore and have a whole theater full duck and gasp with fright and pleasure. And although Harrison Ford is still in top form and the movie is truly fun in patches, it's a genre on the wane.
Oh, off.
Let me give you the worst one here. Chicago Reader. This is by someone named Jonathan Rosenbaum, and his review is simply this: mechanical, soulless.
All right, Jonathan.
How Metacritic operates, they look at someone's review and they say, wow, they had absolutely zero problems with this. They loved it. Here's 100. And then they look at someone like Jonathan, who gives 2-word review, and they slap it with a 20. You want to know what else Jonathan reviewed?
Talk to me.
And actually something that goes back to something I called out. So Metacritic slapped one of his reviews with 100 score. And that's a perfect score. And guess what movie it is, Nick? Take a wild guess. I shouted it out in this podcast.
You're talk about my active listening skills. What is it, buddy?
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? So
no.
Metacritic assigned 100 score to The Chicago Reader by Jonathan Rosenbaum because this is what he said about Who Framed Roger Rabbit: combines live action and animation with breathtaking wizardry. Alternatively, hilarious, frightening, and awesome. That kind of gives you a scope of how Metacritic scores critic reviews, because these are from decades ago and they could be one sentence. They could be a paragraph. So it is a little bit of a wild card. So I am very shocked that the Metacritic critic score is 65. I think it is very low, criminally low, actually.
That's ridiculous.
Speaking of, let's see if the Metacritic audience can do something about this.
Well, the Metacritic audience lined themselves up directly with the Rotten Tomatoes critics at an 8.4.
And this is interesting because when I make the schedule and I create the sheet at the beginning of the year, the Metacritic audience was at an 8.5. So at some point between January and July, someone had a problem with it and bumped it down to 8.4.
Weirdos. And
now
for
our
our
whip cracking, Nazi whacking, tank blasting,
blasting,
long life lasting, Sean Connery smacking score from IMDb in 8.2.
Oh,
Henry Jones Sr. and Henry Jones Jr. were never on the same page. However, we are on the same page because we literally have the same exact brain wavelengths. And with the final review set, we're going to slap you guys with our laughable log lines, our popcorn points, and our final thoughts. Nick, it's my turn to go first.
Can't wait to hear it.
Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade, laughable log line. Indiana Jones needs to find his kidnapped dad, fight off Nazis again, and help Jesus Christ find his missing favorite cup. 8.8 popcorn points.
Ooh.
This is my favorite Indiana Jones movie out of the original trilogy. I think it's an awesome way to wrap up the OG series. I appreciate the clues, the foreshadowing images, and words spoken on screen that lead up to the resolution in this movie. I think this is all of the best of Raiders, and then some. And I'll dive into that. So Spielberg truly is in Spielberg form with this one. Cinematography, still up to par. Editing, effects, visual storytelling, it's all still there from Raiders. With this one, Steven Spielberg truly is in his bag. We got Harrison Ford doing his own stunts, riding horses. I think his homeboy, stuntman Vic Armstrong, who did a lot of fill-in work on Temple when Harrison Ford got that fat-ass back injury, he did a lot of heavy lifting on the stunt work. However, he was a little bit bored on this one because Harrison Ford was doing all his stunts. We get amazing chase scenes. We get elaborate practical sets and special effects. And most importantly, it's not a regurgitation, repeat, watered down version. We have iconic moments, and this movie has its own identity. There's no backwash effort from the last two movies. The quality is the same, if not better. We get great laughs, and the gags actually worked in this one versus others that we've seen so far. They started this whole series as a rip-roaring adventure ride inspired by those Saturday matinee serials that they would enjoy as kids. And this movie doesn't miss a beat in keeping that fun spirit alive while also adding more and better layers to its characters. We get a lot of background on Indiana Jones. We see him as a kid. We get little flashcards of why he has certain characteristics as an adult. The love interest, like you said, Elsa Schneider is the most dynamic of all the female characters we've seen so far. We don't get a come here, you hug and a kiss at the end. No, this lady dies because she was a very complex character. We never knew if she was on her side. We never knew if she was on the bad guy's side. She was a good character. Side characters, absolutely pulling weight. Sala, Brody, even Chasm, they were all doing their part. Sala is the cool comic relief. Brody is the bumbling, fumbling comic relief. Chasm, again, he was a wild card. In the past two movies, the bad guys were very obvious. This one, we never knew who was bad, who was good. And that's the beauty of good and bad. Sometimes it's not black and white. Sometimes there's a gray area. And this movie's all about Indiana Jones and the father relationship. We get some actual character moments. There's a problem. There's a disconnect that these two characters have. Maybe Indiana Jones is an obsessive archaeologist and murderous treasure hunter because of his upbringing, because of his neglectful dad. We don't know. Maybe he beats the shit out of Nazis and temple thugs because of all the built-up resentment he has for his estranged father. Maybe it all makes sense now, the kill count. Fantastically talented or trained people most of the time do come from a dysfunctional home. So this sheds a lot of light on why Indy is the way he is, because his obsession that his dad has with the Holy Grail. In retaliation, Indiana Jones became obsessed with being a great archaeologist and finding one artifact at a time. So when he says, I don't get this obsession, Dad, it really is the pot calling the kettle black. And the way they reconcile is achieved in a very thoughtful filmmaking way. I was actually very scared, and this was going to be my worst scene of the movie if it went this way. But the fake out death scene at the tank when we thought Indiana Jones died, I really was scared that they were going to go in the direction of Henry Jones Sr. doing a confession, thinking his son was dead, and his son was right behind him, listening to him the entire time and thinking, oh, Dad, that's how you really feel. But they leave that alone. They just let that scene
That would have
breathe.
sucked. That would
have sucked.
sucked.
Yeah, that would have been like a
Yeah.
cheap trick, and we wouldn't have been here for it. But instead, this is how their story arc plays out. The first line we get on screen from Sean Connery is Junior. And then we learn later that Indiana hates being called Junior, and I think it's because his resentfulness of his father. He doesn't want to be a small version of his dad. He wants to be his own person. Call me Indiana. And then when his father needs to reach out to him at the very end and have connection with his son, he calls him out by his preferred name of Indiana. It's a great dynamic to add for Indiana Jones because, like you said, he's been this adventurer badass, but he does seem like he's at a little bit of a disadvantage with his dad coming back into the picture because mentally it seems like he's not all there and he's getting thrown off his game, quote unquote, because his dad was not the best parent figure when he's growing up. So I think it adds a nice layer to Indiana Jones that we were really missing in the last two movies of he's not the man with the plan. He's a human being with human emotions. And at the end, when they're talking about the Holy Grail and Henry Jones Sr. says, Elsa never believed in the Grail. She thought she found the prize. And Indiana Jones says, what did you find, Dad? And his dad says, illumination. And this just gives us proof that he's been enlightened to what the true treasure in life is. And that's not a 1,000-year-old cup. That's his son. So this movie has all the thrills and laughs as the other plot-driven movies that came before it, except this one feels a lot more human. It's the only Jones movie so far that I've been emotionally invested in the characters because it's not about the treasure hunting and heads exploding. This is truly a story about a father and a son. And all that fun stuff, the chases, the gags, that's all bonus. In my opinion, that's why I think this is the best Indiana Jones movie.
I love that breakdown, my friend. That was great. All right, time for my laughable log line.
Hit me.
My laughable log line is Indy is back with a much better cast of characters, but don't worry, the Nazis are also back. 9.0. This is a 9.0 from me, man. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, my friend. This is easily the best of the original trilogy, and having seen the other ones, this is the best Indiana Jones movie that has been made. Like you said, the dynamic, what's driving Indiana Jones in this movie, right? It's a character development. It is why he is who he is. Even that opening scene of young Indy becoming who he was and him being who he is and being a consistent character, right? Not a flimsy character. But really what I love about this movie is something I mentioned a little earlier. This movie was the best constructed of the three originals and of all the Indiana Jones. There was a full setup from the beginning, right? They didn't give you any extra information that wasn't going to come into play later, right? They didn't just give you plot points in the beginning that didn't have a payoff, right? I hate having movies that are going to give me something in the beginning that's not going to come into play later, right? Why did I learn this about this character, right? And especially for a character like Indiana Jones that we have 2 full movies of, right? How much more can you tell me about this character that I don't already know? Well, they did a great job, and maybe it was them getting through their divorce and being a little less cynical about the world and really sitting down and storyboarding this all out. Sure, there were a few times when it got a little too fan servicey, but all in all, I think they did a great job of bringing back that original Indiana Jones feel. They had every opportunity to fall into the trap of overcorrecting after Temple, and they didn't. I think Spielberg and Lucas sat down, created a really good storyline that was wildly coherent, almost too coherent for a George Lucas, right? For a guy that we know can get a little incoherent. And
if I can add on, I do think this story was a lot more personal to Steven Spielberg because it's known that he didn't have a great relationship with his father. And that was his idea, to have a father dynamic in this movie. Like you touched upon with Temple, going through divorces, mindset wasn't in the right spot, and they were kind of just taking unnecessary risks and in our opinion, fucking up, honestly, if I'm being straight.
Yeah.
With this one, I think they took it a lot more personal and a lot more to heart and said, hey, we have one more movie on the contract. Let's do it right. Let's do it big, and let's do it loud and proud. And like you said, with the construction, I do think I wanted to shout this out. I thought it was paced very well. 2-hour movie, However, I thought the pacing was great. Halfway point, we get the dad. 30 minutes to the end, we are at the Grail final showdown site. I thought it never dragged and it was plotted out perfectly.
Honestly, that was going to be my next point. For 2 hours of entertainment, at no point did this ever have a lull in the storyline, right? It was wildly entertaining. It was constantly engaging, whether it be the chase scenes or the emotional scenes that they had built throughout the entire course of the story, right? So everything was being connected along the way. And then just to top it all off, that really made it that 9, casting of Sean Connery. I mean, just an A++++ casting of a great actor like Sean Connery to play the dad. It's the best and most dynamic Indiana Jones. 8.89. This hits it.
What would you say to those people that say Raiders is the best movie of the bunch?
I mean, it's hard to beat the first. It's the same way folks say A New Hope is the best Star Wars.
I think it's first movie bias. I think you got to get past that.
Absolutely.
You need to accept that things can grow and evolve. And in my opinion, this movie is just like Raiders, except it has that added layer of character stories. Characters are king. Raiders did such a good job with a plot-driven story and storytelling through visuals and giving us a very entertainment joyride. However, this delivers the exact same product, except it gives us that much-needed thing that Raiders was not quite missing but could have used, which was character development and story arcs.
That doesn't say that Raiders is necessarily, like, worse is a bad word.
Raiders,
right?
It's not worse. Raiders is a great movie. However, I think this just ups the ante
better
and gives us a little bit more.
We could all agree that Temple of Doom is the worst of the trilogy.
Of the trilogy. I haven't seen Crystal Skull yet. However, that is coming down the line.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. All right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it can only go down from here. And that is our review of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We thank you guys for sticking with us and listening to us ramble on and reminisce about this movie that is over 30 years old. It's a fun time. We're happy to be here. We're happy you are listening. And we thank you. And we encourage you to follow us on our socials. We're on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play It Podcast. We are on X. And if you're still stubborn and calling it Twitter, we're on Twitter at Just Play It Pod. I'm not judging. I don't care. I'm not on that shit. And we love that you're following us and enjoying our shenanigans. And we encourage you to listen to us next time as we review a movie that, if I were to say it out loud, you would think it's a very famous movie from the 60s. However, it's from the 90s.
Bang, bang.
That's all we got to say. We're halfway through the franchise of the year. We're halfway through the year. Happy 4th of July. We are heading gone. And remember, if it looks like there's nothing in front of you, why don't you go out and take a big step, leap of faith, and get that Holy Grail sauce and live forever. Dog.
Imagine being Eskimo brothers with your pops.
Oh, you're that kind of archaeologist.